It's the fastest racing track in the world. The high banks and wide open surface invite speed. It's Michigan International Speedway, home of the Michigan 500. But increased speed in close racing can spell disaster. At 230 miles an hour, reactions must be instinctive. Even the slightest hesitation can turn a beautiful run into a terrifying ride. A driver's perfect day can end not just by his own mistakes, but by those of others. The concrete wall streams along inches away, almost inviting. But even the slightest touch is devastating. Last year, the Michigan 500 was a contest of youth. Paul Tracy battled with Scott Goodyear in a duel that went on for miles. And ended with Scott Goodyear's first IndyCar win. Now they're back. Paul Tracy with 3 wins this year, the hottest driver in the series. Raul Boesel, 3rd in points. Skilled, consistent, searching for a win. Englishman Nigel Mansell, 2nd in points, and chasing the new points leader, Emerson Fittipaldi. The race for the PPG Cup is flat out. Michigan International Speedway, it's the 13th running of the Michigan 500. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and in many ways, this is IndyCar racing's toughest day. Unlike Indianapolis with its long straightaways, on this 2-mile high bank speedway, 2/3 of the lap, you're turning the car, and the G-forces are trying to push you out of the cockpit. And consider 2 awesome speeds over 230 miles an hour. And a terrific front row, Ford-powered Lola chassis. A great veteran and a great rookie. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, for the 2nd consecutive year, Newman Haas Racing owns the front row for this Michigan 500. Again, Mario Andretti on the pole with a record-breaking speed. But as he looks to his right on the outside pole position, no, it's not his son Michael like it was last year. It's his teammate Nigel Mansell, a rookie here at Michigan. But so important to Nigel Mansell, this qualifying effort, because he is still embroiled in a very heated points chase for the National Driving Championship. And for more on his foe, let's check in with my colleague Gary Gerald.
Jack, one of the great surprises of this race weekend has been the search for speed for season points leader Emerson Fittipaldi. He starts back here in 15th position in the 8th row. You've got to go back 6 years to the last time he had a worse qualifying position. But he's with some very interesting company. He's got Bobby Rahal to his immediate right. He's got Al Unser Jr. right behind him. 3 veteran winning drivers, more than 60 wins between them in their careers, better than 10 miles an hour slower than that front row. They've got a lot of work to do in the 500 miles ahead. Paul?
So very definitely some surprises in the way they line up here for the Michigan 500. An interesting qualifying session. Let's look at the starting field. On the pole, it's Mario Andretti, his 66th career pole in a record-shattering run at 234 miles an hour. Outside is Nigel Mansell, the 6th time he sat on the front row this season. Row 2, the inside is Arie Luyendyk. He came from the last row to finish 2nd here 2 years ago. Alongside, Raul Boesel ran 3rd in last year's thriller. Row 3 to the inside is Paul Tracy, going for his 3rd straight IndyCar victory this afternoon. And Scott Goodyear, the defending champion. In row number 4 on the inside is Scott Brayton, the only driver who has started in all 13 Michigan 500s. And Teo Fabi, who finished 2nd in this event in 1989. Inside row 5 is Robbie Gordon, going for his 6th straight top 10 finish. And Lynn St. James, the first time a woman has qualified in the top 10 since 1979. Row 6 inside is Roberto Guerrero, making his first Michigan start in 3 years. And Hiro Matsushita, his best qualifying effort in his 4-year career. Row 7, Willie T. Ribbs. This equals his best starting position ever. And Stefan Johansson, his first start in IndyCar racing's fastest event. Row 8 is Emerson Fittipaldi. His first IndyCar win came here in '85. And Bobby Rahal, twice a runner-up in the Michigan 500. In row 9, it's Al Unser Jr., who won the fastest 500-mile race ever here in 1990. Outside, Buddy Lazier, who ran 7th last year. Row 10, David Coudray, who finished 8th at Phoenix. And Olivier Briard, a freshman from France. The 11th row, Marco Greco, a graduate of the Indy Lights. And Jeff Wood, an 8-year veteran. Row 12, Ross Bentley in his 2nd Michigan 500. And 8 of the 23 starters in today's field have never taken a green flag here at Michigan. Lynn St. James waits. We'll start the engines in a moment.
The Michigan 500 is brought to you by Valvoline. People who know use Valvoline. By Old Milwaukee and Old Milwaukee Light. It doesn't get any better than this. And by your local Yamaha dealer, who invite you to see their exciting line of motorcycles, ATVs, and water vehicles.
Back at the Michigan 500, just a few minutes away from the start of the engines now. Sam Posey, we're talking a sport with many new faces.
Well, of course, at the beginning of the season, Nigel Mansell appeared like a shooting star. But as the year has developed, two new faces have thrust themselves to the forefront. Paul Tracy, because he has led more laps than anyone, and Raul Boesel, because he has completed more laps than anyone. Both men took what we thought we knew about them and have changed our minds. Paul Tracy, the 24-year-old Canadian, was known to be fast, but he seemed too mistake-prone to be a regular winner. For 6 seasons, Raul Boesel had been solid but unspectacular, apparently destined to run forever in midfield. But all that changed this year. Tracy won Long Beach, his first IndyCar victory. A fluke? It seemed that way as he returned to his crashing ways, but then came Cleveland, win number 2, and then Toronto. 3 wins, and suddenly Paul Tracy was hot. Boesel stepped from the shadows onto center stage at Indy when he raced from the front row into the lead. Penalized during the race, he was still smoldering a week later when he seized the pole at Milwaukee. He went on to finish second. Both Boesel and Tracy started their careers early.
My dad was at one time was doing a lot of work for General Motors, contracting, and there was a go-kart track on the way out there. You know, during the summer, we had a pickup truck, and he'd drop me off there for the day, and he'd, you know, at 8 o'clock in the morning, he'd come back and pick me up at 5, and I'd be, you know, just about out of gas when he showed up, and so that was, you know, I'd spend my summer days at the go-kart track.
Well, I always liked cars, but I followed the footsteps of my oldest brother, which was a Joe Jump horse. But like I said, I always liked cars and so on, and I have a friend that bought a go-kart. You know, my mind just went like completely the other way, and I said, well, that's what I want to do.
Both have won championships. Raul, with his Mr. Consistency style, won the World Sports Car Championship in 1987. While Paul darted and swerved to brilliance in Indy Lights. When Paul's running hard, he enters what he calls the zone.
The car just gets hooked up, and you can just go anywhere on the track that you want. You know, I felt that a couple times this year. You know, I just got myself into situations where, you know, didn't leave enough room to get out of it, and I was already committed, and I got stuck in the box and couldn't get out of it, and that's what cost me the race this day.
It was very frustrating in Indianapolis, of course. It's something that I try to put away from my mind. I knew that day I was the best driver, the best combination, team, driver, and this gives us, you know, the insurance that we're here for real.
Raul, his wife Vera, and their 2 children live part of the year in Miami. Climate there is similar to his home in Brazil. For 10 years, his career has been successful, not spectacular. Now all that is beginning to change, and Raul is ready. For Paul, the motorcycle is for relaxation. For fitness, it's a mountain bike. His life is changing fast, too. He and his wife, Tara, have a young daughter, and Paul's future may soon become that of a racing superstar. Paul Tracy, Raul Boesel, 2 different paths, both to the top.
And Paul, the man that has guided Paul Tracy throughout his racing career is Rick Mears. And Rick, in 1991, you won your last 500-mile race, in fact, your last race ever, here in this Michigan 500. Then, 1 year ago, in 1992, he was forced out of the car with a painful right wrist, decided that he would call it quits at the end of the season. But you're back as the Grand Marshal. So many great memories here for Rick Mears.
A lot of great memories, but I think, you know, really, this has always been my favorite racetrack besides, so it's probably only fitting that it was the last place for a win and also the last race that I ever ran. I've always loved this racetrack.
Well, as Grand Marshals, they usually either let you sing the national anthem or give the command to start engines. They decided to let you do the honors today. It's all yours, Rick.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the Marlboro 500, start your engines.
161 cubic inches, turbocharged engines, developing nearly 800 horsepower. The chassis itself, 1,550 pounds. Composite materials, high tech, high speed, and they are going to be tested here today. In this starting field today in the chassis, 3 Penske chassis, the rest are all Lolas. And the engine combinations today, 10 Cosworth, the rest are Chevrolet with the exception of 1 Buick and 1 Cosworth DFS. So now they sit poised and ready to go. Nigel Mansell, the outside of the front row. Mario Andretti sits on the pole. We'll be back. Back at Michigan International Speedway for the Michigan 500. Bobby Unser, 3-time Indy 500 winner. We're talking speeds here over 230 miles an hour. They're awesome.
Well, Paul, 234 miles an hour is over 350 feet per second. Now, that's faster than Rick Mears' closed course record set in Indy cars right here at Michigan and with unlimited boost. Now, in a race, it means you have to constantly look over half a mile ahead. Anything closer and you can't really react to it. In the high bank turns, that means you're looking way up and to the left, almost over your shoulder, just to find the exit of the turns. And at the same time, the 5 lateral G's are trying to push your head out the right side of the cockpit. Now, this race is not only a test of driving skills, but also a strength and endurance test for both the driver and the cars.
So plenty of challenges, and 250 laps, 500 miles lie ahead. We'll look again at the grid. Mario Andretti and Nigel Mansell make up the front row. In row number 2, it's Arie Luyendyk and Raoul Boisel. The third row, Paul Tracy and Scott Goodyear, the 2 Canadians. The fourth row, Scott Brayton and Teo Fabi. In row number 5, it's Robbie Gordon and Lynn St. James. In the 6th row, Roberto Guerrero and Hiro Matsushita. In the 7th row now, it is Willie T. Ribbs and Stefan Johansson. Row number 8, Emerson Fittipaldi and Bobby Rahal. And in the 9th row, Al Unser Jr. along with Buddy Lazier, remarkable qualifying. In row number 10, David Coudrave and Olivier Griard. And the 11th row, Marco Greco and Jeff Wood. And in row number 12, all alone, Canadian Ross Bentley. Marco Greco has had some problems getting started. You can see his car is still sitting in the pit box, and they continue to work on it with the cowling off, but it's obvious he won't take the green flag for this Michigan 500. Once again, 250 laps lie ahead, 500 miles. And on the line today, the race analysis, race record of blistering 189 miles an hour. Scott Goodyear, of course, his only IndyCar win coming here last year. And the fuel stops, well, if they run green, should go to about the 33rd to the 35th lap. Temperature, there is a chance of rain with 70 degrees on the track right now. So there's a possibility of showers. They've been missing the track for the most part here today. But there is that possibility, and we'll keep an eye on that as well. So now behind the PPG pace car, the field lines up. The points fights in the Indy cars, well, it just changed at the last race. Nigel Mansell has been dominating most of the year, but now Emerson Fittipaldi is in front. You ride with Bobby Rahal as the field begins to align now, coming off of the 4th and final corner and turning toward the green flag. Nicely aligned, but as Mario comes ahead, the green flag does come out. Mario got a good jump on the rest of the field. Nigel Mansell slides into second place, and the rest of the field comes on through. Mansell dropping back now as Luyendyk coming forward to begin to challenge, but here comes Mansell once again, and Mansell moves for second place as he moves very low on the race course. Remember, this is his first start on a super speedway, high bank assist style. And Mario Andretti turns in for the line and takes the first lap, while the battle for second is between Luyendyk and Mansell. Now Mansell looks to the high side as they head down into turn 1. Luyendyk holds a mid-course line and pulls away from Nigel Mansell. Mario Andretti has now led in 10 of the 13 Michigan 500. So there he is, out in front, Mario Andretti, followed by the battle between Luyendyk and Mansell. Scott Goodyear into 4th. Raoul Boisel runs in 5th. In 6th place is Paul Tracy as we follow the Boisel and Tracy story. 7th across the line, Robbie Gordon, then Brayton, then Teo Fabi and Roberto Guerrero. And Nigel Mansell moves again.
You got to remember, Paul, too, these are all Lola Fords. The two, the Andretti car, the Mansell car, and the red and black one right there, Lyndike, all Lola Ford. So the speed shouldn't be just about the same. But remember another thing, grafting here will make a lot more difference than it does in a lot of the tracks.
Battle for 4th and 5th, Raul Boisel, Scott Goodyear.
Bobby, I think the key to what you just said is the Ford part. In qualifying, the Ford engines have absolutely dominated. You see Tracy on the right there. He's the front-running Chevrolet.
Well, Paul Tracy closes in on Scott Goodyear. On the Ford engines themselves, Jack Arute has an update. Jack?
Well, Paul, the Ford engines may be having a problem in the telemetry. It seems during the practice session, they did not get all of the telemetry back from the race cars via the radio wave. All the Ford engineers have been working with their laptop computers. They are still not getting an accurate reading of all the items that they should be measuring. So there's a lot of head scratching and a lot of concern for all the Ford teams. Ironically, the only team that's not experiencing the problem is Mario Andretti's Newman Haas team.
Nigel Mansell just blistered off the fastest lap of the race thus far at 221 miles an hour.
Mansell was highly critical of the track after just a few laps around it back on Friday, but he has obviously taken control of this situation despite having so little experience here.
On board, Nigel Mansell, as he now in pursuit from second place of his teammate Mario Andretti on a very high learning curve. Teo Fabi, Scott Brayton. Battle about 7th position.
Paul, a lot of the drivers and the car owners have planned their deals to run hard the first couple laps and then to cut back. And the way they cut back on their speed, or hurting their engines a little bit, is by shifting to a higher gear ratio. Or in other words, turning a little bit less RPM. And that's what they're starting to do right now.
Robbie Gordon, car 14, the black car, runs in the 7th place. Closing on him is Scott Brayton. Lives not far from here in Coldwater, Michigan.
Remember, these are the fastest runs you will see in competition. The fastest laps as Brayton pulls alongside Gordon for a moment at any time during the entire automobile racing season. This is the highest speed you will see.
Scott Brayton just didn't get a run at him there, Sam. He tried, but he just pulled out, and then the wind hit him, and he went right backwards. But
Scott Goodyear makes the move on Boisel, so Scott Goodyear moves into 4th place. Boisel stays in contact.
Boisel, of course, felt he should have won Indianapolis had he not been penalized. This is his chance to come back on a high-speed track, a lot like Indianapolis, and prove his point. You see him running right behind Scott Goodyear there. Boisel in the orange car.
Raul Boisel, a quiet man, but a very proud man, was furious after the Indy 500. As we heard earlier, he thought he had the combination and the skill and a chance, and that black flag cost him dearly.
And of course, Goodyear also in the blue car has a great deal to prove. He won here last year, but since then his career has gone very flat. Much was expected of him, and it has gone flat.
And remember, both of these are Ford engine cars. Watch Scott Goodyear right there getting a draft. He had a good draft on him, and once you get a slingshot, you go right on by.
So Scott Goodyear moves into 4th place. The top of the order is Mario Andretti, Mansell, and Arie Luyendyk sits in 3rd. So the Michigan 500 is underway at a good, fast pace above 221 miles an hour. We'll be back. Back at the Michigan 500, Michigan International Speedway, and Arie Luyendyk definitely has been struggling the last couple of laps. Whether or not it is intentional or not is the question. Scott Goodyear got past him, then Raul Boisel, and then Paul Tracy. And now Paul Tracy, running in 5th place, is closing on the back of Boisel. But Arie Luyendyk has been falling steadily backwards.
He's got a straightaway problem, Paul. There he is, you can see. Here comes Scott Goodyear by him. Of course, he's got a good draft going by him. Scott did that one right. But we see some other cars passing Luyendyk, and he seems to run through the turns good. But as he gets about a 4th way down the straightaway, the engine seems to lose power right there. There's Raul Boisel right behind him there.
Raul Boisel, as he set up the pass on Arie, and Arie seemed to move to the high line, and Boisel just came on past without too much trouble at all. The next pass, of course, is that of Paul Tracy as he lined up, and they did, in fact, come to an opportunity to fight for just a moment. So 2 cars already passed Luyendyk. Now here comes Paul Tracy. But Lyondike came back to battle with him a bit as they ran through the corners. Still, Paul Tracy finally took the position, but they continue to remain locked in battle. And Paul Tracy definitely by him. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, a quick word on Ari Lyondike. They were worried that it was a boost problem. That doesn't seem to be the case. Instead, it's just a severe case of the car not handling well. He has a severe case of understeer, particularly in turn number 2. That's what he has to contend with, most likely until the first pit stop.
Chip Ganassi, car owner for Ari Lyondike. Bobby Unser not handling. Pretty early to have that problem.
Yes, it's way too early, and the racetrack is nice shape. You know, we had a little bit of rain. The racetrack is just perfect right now.
Fittipaldi closing on Scott Brayton. Remember, Fittipaldi had not a great qualifying day, a terrible qualifying day, but now he is up, challenging for 8th place.
Both the Penske cars are running better now in the race than they did in qualifying. Typical of what happened at Indianapolis, too, where they qualified badly, came on, and, of course, Fittipaldi won the race.
And, Sam, let's keep in mind now, everybody has, in order to make this 500 miles, it's the toughest race in the entire circuit as far as engines and chassis and drivers go. So, in order to make it, they all have to cut back their RPM, so they run a higher gear, and some of them cut their boost back a little bit, because they realize that you can look really good and halfway through the race break. They've all been through this before, so they're definitely going to be cut back a little bit now. All except for Mario and Mansell seem to be hooking it up really hard.
Nothing changes at the front of the field. This is the battle for 7th place. Robbie Gordon is trying to hold off a very lively Scott Brayton.
And Gordon, and there in the black car, has had a terrific mid-season. He's had a 10th. There's Brayton making a move on him, but Gordon has become Mr. Reliable with a 10th, a pair of 8s, and 2 6ths for his last 5 races going into this. He's starting to take the long view instead of just trying to win every race in the first lap.
Side by side through the 3rd and 4th turn, side by side through the tri-oval. They get very close together. And Brayton holds on. Here comes Fittipaldi, closing just behind them. So now it's a 3-way battle.
Remember, with 2 guys running side by side the way Gordon and Scott did, you can just imagine the draft that Fittipaldi was getting from that. It's almost like a vacuum sucking him up to the 2 of them.
Is it, though, Bobby Unser, a good draft, or is there some turbulence in there that can cause a problem?
Oh, it's a really good draft, Paul, especially in the straightaways. In the turns, it's going to be a lot of turbulence. He won't like that. But, man, he can back off half the throttle when he's running with him like that.
Following the same battle from the Goodyear blimp floating over Michigan International Speedway here. Michigan International celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. And once again, here comes Brayton. They move to the backstretch. This is where he's been able to get his best run on Gordon.
And again, Fittipaldi slowly begins to inch toward both of them.
Now we think, or at least I think, that Brayton probably could have moved up on Robbie Gordon in the black car a little bit quicker than he did right then. But all of these drivers realize this track is a man killer. They're all going to be desperately tired if they make it to the end.
Remember that Scott Brayton comes from Coldwater, Michigan, very near here. So the stands are packed with Scott Brayton fans. He's very popular here in his home state.
Now coming to the backside with perhaps that little extra effort because of the hometown crowd. And here Scott Brayton is alongside. He got a good draft into the corner this time, and he goes past Gordon. So Scott Brayton now into 7th place. Paul Tracy is still running just ahead of Bosell in 4th position. Here is Emerson Fittipaldi lined up just behind Gordon, and now he will set his sights on Gordon.
Just remember these speeds. We're looking at cars going almost 230 miles an hour. Watch that pavement go by. Watch the fence whip by. Watch the grandstands go by. This is very high speed, the fastest you'll see.
So the Michigan 500 is off and running 22 laps into the record book, averaging 218.4 miles an hour. The lead taken immediately by Mario Andretti. Nigel Mansell dropped back, battled with Scott Goodyear for a while, and then finally settled down into 2nd place. Paul Tracy came forward around Raul Boisel as Ari Lyondike had his problem. Now Fittipaldi makes his move down inside of Gordon, and Fittipaldi moves forward. So Robbie Gordon is either setting a pace or suffering a problem.
Well, I don't think he's really suffering. At least doesn't look like it right now, Paul. I think he just realized, or his crew has told him, hey, don't try to burn the candle at both ends at the start. Take it a little easier.
A 500-mile race, Bobby. You've driven hundreds of them. What should be the design, the strategy that a driver plays? Run hard at first and then settle down and then run right at the last?
Well, what they'd like to all do is what most of them have done right now. Run really hard early on, settle down to the middle. Don't lose anything. Most importantly, try not to get lapped. And then have the last third of the race, or at least the last fourth of the race, to really put it on hard.
Leader of the race, Mario Andretti, as he begins to thread his way through traffic.
Well, Jack showed us that both the Newman-Haas cars were on the front row with Mario, as we see here, and Nigel Mansell. They had Newman-Haas had 2 cars on the front row last year, and it's interesting that neither of them even got to half distance. And in fact, the Ford engine, the contemporary Ford engine that is in Mario's car here, has never managed to win a 500-mile race. So a lot is riding here today.
Battle for third now. Tracy, Goodyear.
As I went down to the garages yesterday talking to the various mechanics, a lot of the Chevrolet guys were asking me, do you think the Fords can finish, Bobby? They know that the Fords have a lot more power on them here. And, you know, nobody knows because they haven't done a 500-miler like that. But they are awful fast here.
Tracy using the advantage of the slower car, Mashusta just ahead of him. And he tries to get down inside of Goodyear, but it won't work. By the way, the pronunciation on Mashusta, that is now how his team says they'd like it used. Here's Tracy just alongside of Scott Goodyear. Uses the draft going into the third turn, but Scott Goodyear is going to hang with him.
This is the battle for third.
And keep in mind, Tracy is in a Chevy, Goodyear is in a Ford.
And remember, it was these 2 men who battled it out at the end of this race last year. So they have resumed their rivalry here on the high banks of Michigan exactly a year later.
Back at the front of the field, Nigel Mansell has now closed up. Using the traffic on Mario Andretti. He comes way high into the corner, gets alongside Mario. Mario has the better line at this point, but look at Nigel Mansell. This is a rookie on a super speedway. He figured it out in about 3 laps of practice.
Well, Paul, one thing I've been noticing on Mario, his last, or 3 laps ago, 2:16, then 2:14, his last lap was 2:10. Now, some of that's in traffic, but Nigel has caught him from way back, probably 100 yards back, where now he should pull away. So Mario definitely has some sort of a problem.
Both of them pull high to come through the traffic now. Nigel Mansell picks up the lead here in Michigan for the first time, the first lead change in the race today. 28 laps are complete very shortly. They'll start thinking about the pit stops. But Nigel Mansell is in front, and we have had green flag right from the start of this race. So the Michigan 500 is very fast at 217 miles an hour. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Overhead at the Michigan 500, the Goodyear blimp providing aerial views today. It's the Goodyear blimp Spirit from Akron, Ohio. And on the racetrack now, 33 laps are now complete. Nigel Mansell took over the lead from Mario Andretti, and immediately upon doing so, started turning laps at 223 miles an hour. Because of that, as we look at this interval leaderboard, you can see that Mario has dropped back now almost 2 seconds behind the leader of the race. But first and second, well, they're pulling away from the rest of the field. For an update on 4th place, Scott Goodyear, here's Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, you saw Scott Goodyear battling with Paul Tracy. It may have been focus for Goodyear that created the problem. No complaints about the handling, but this piece that goes on the headrest that he can lean up against has come loose, and his head is beginning to bob inside the cockpit. And at 230 miles an hour plus, it's tough to focus on a point when your head's going back and forth. They're going to change it on the first pit stop.
And Jack Arute, one of the complaints in the drivers' meeting this morning was Bobby Rahal's concern with how rough it is.
Well, your head bounces back and forth, even with new aerodynamic helmets. Remember, these are open cockpit cars.
Al Unser Jr., who was running in 13th place, is the first to make a pit stop here today. Other teams now beginning to lay out. This is on Little Al's 34th lap. He is already a lap down to the leader.
He is a previous winner here, but not overly competitive so far today. His teammate Danny Sullivan out with the flu, not in the race.
Originally, they had intended perhaps that Adrian Fernandez would drive the car, but he got in trouble once during practice against the wall, and I think wisely decided to just hold that car out for another opportunity in the future. Roberto Guerrero makes his stop.
One of the things that's happened to the Lola cars, Paul, is the bell housings. The housing between the engine and the transmission was breaking on the Lolas. About 2 weeks ago, it's been rumored that the factory knew that they were having bell housing problems, but they failed to tell all the mechanics. There's Tracy coming in for a pit stop.
Let's go to Jackaroo.
And Paul, they make a major adjustment on the front wing, as they also will change all 4 tires. They took it looked to be about a turn up on both the right and the left side of the front wing. Chasing the racetrack all day. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Mario Andretti, the first of the Newman Haas drivers to come in, the man who set the record from the pole, not expecting any changes. Routine stop with fresh rubber and fuel. He's rolling in just under 14 seconds. Now we wait for Mansell.
And Mansell is on the pit road. He turned the last lap before this one at 225 miles an hour. And he turns in toward Gary.
And Paul, he comes in very slowly, being very cautious. Remember, this whole business of many pit stops in a race still somewhat new to Mansell. A very conservative approach. The team going through their usual chores. Again, there'll be no changes here. They talked about a wing change.
Mansell catches a break, Gary. Mansell catches a break. The yellow is out. Stefan Johansson spun it in the 4th turn, got it up against the wall. Safety crews are already there, but Mansell was in the pits as the yellow came out.
Well, this is the thing that's really going to change things. When you have a yellow coming out on a 2-mile track like this, under the green flag when everybody's in the pits, boy, I'll tell you what's going to cause a lot of rethinking on the pit stops.
Pit speed limit today, 110 miles an hour. They'll give you 5. If you get to 115, they're going to stop and go you for a penalty. Let's go to Jackaroo.
Well, Paul, that may be a break for Emerson Fittipaldi. He was scheduled to come onto pit road at that very lap. Saw the spin by Lynn St. James. Chuck Sprague and the crew radioed for him to stay out. Now they will be able to make their pit stop under the luxury of the yellow.
And Fittipaldi was very close to going a lap down. You saw Stefan Johansson is out of the car, obviously uninjured. They work on that car now. We have the first yellow flag at Michigan International. 38 laps are in the record book, and to this point, they've averaged 216 miles an hour. We'll be right back. Tonight, Billy Ray Cyrus brings his achy breaky heart to America's Funniest Home Videos, followed by America's Funniest People. And then Clint Eastwood is back in the line of fire as Dirty Harry in the Deadpool, the Sunday night movie tonight on ABC. Well, we're still under yellow at Michigan International Speedway as a result of an accident involving Stefan Johansson. He is out of the car, reported uninjured. They're still trying to get the car off of the race course. On the super speedways, IndyCar teams must reconfigure not only the setup of the race car itself, but some also change the equipment worn by the driver. Gary Gerald has a full explanation.
At speeds of well over 200 miles per hour, the air that comes streaming up over the front cowling and over the windscreen into the cockpit creates a tremendous amount of buffeting around the driver's head. There's a new helmet design that's found favor among many of the drivers who are competing here in Michigan today. Here's an example of the helmet, this one worn by Bobby Rahal. They've addressed the buffeting problem in 3 critical areas. The first is this lip that protrudes down here in front. It creates downforce, much like a front wing, pushes the helmet down, keeps the air from getting underneath and wanting to lift on the driver's head. Second area, a subtle change, a patented design contour up here on top that aerodynamically also combats that lift factor. And the third area has to do with this wicker bill, much like you find on the rear wing of the race car. This helps create downforce, but perhaps more significantly, back in this position, it keeps a buildup of air from building here behind the driver's head and instead attaches the stream of air to the side of the car and it trails right on back. Now, what does that all do at these high speeds? Well, with that buffeting, the driver's head is bouncing just like this. Now, because of these factors, it's a very stable ride here with his head. That means he can see much better, and it also means that that lift factor greatly reduces the amount of fatigue and stress that's placed on his neck.
I'll tell you, at this place, fatigue and stress are critical. So now Nigel Mansell under the yellow has the lead of the race. Emerson Fittipaldi picked up a great advantage on that stop. He was almost going to go a lap down. We'll be right back with more from the Michigan 500. Back at Michigan International, they're doing extensive work under the yellow on Lynn's St. James car, but she remains with that machine. 9 cars on the leader lap. Some people picked up an advantage with that yellow, Bobby.
Well, it takes a lap if you pit under the green, no matter how fast your pit stops are. And a lot of the guys pit a little bit early, or the yellow came out right during when everybody's going to start coming in. So, for example, Fittipaldi and Boiselle gained a tremendous advantage. They're way up, and whereas Tracy, even though he's in the serial, looks in to be number 1 right now, he's almost a lap down. So he lost on the shuffle because he came in a little bit too early.
Situations developing during the pit stops, and an update from Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, a very lucky break for Emerson Fittipaldi because that caution came out. He had taken some debris and a puncture right through the tire. Look what happens when you get a tire going down at 230 miles an hour. Just ripped it to shreds. With small debris going that fast, you can make a hole that big in one of these tires. Let's go back up to you.
Well, boy, Paul, he picked up almost a lap from LeLuc, and look at that width at the tire that was absolutely torn apart. That could have saved Emmo's day for him. This man right here, Paul Tracy, though, he suffered from it. He's in a bad position right now. He's going to have a lot of distance to make up. But remember, this is not the team's fault. Nobody knows the yellow is going to come out when it comes out.
You don't think luck plays a role in automobile racing? Also, there's a very long way to go, remember. A 500-mile race offers many opportunities to sort out the things we've just had happen.
250 laps here. You see we're at the 43rd lap, the first yellow of the day, caused when Raul Boiselle got into the wall, apparently alone in turn 4. Nigel Mansell, very light load of fuel, cut a lap at 225 miles an hour just before the pit stop. IndyCar has just announced their new schedule, and here it is for next year, so you can begin booking hotels, getting your tickets, and making arrangements for the 1994 schedule. Season, of course, ends October 2nd next year at Laguna Seca, California. Did I say, I said Boiselle involved in the accident, Bobby?
Yes, Paul, it was actually Johansson. I think you just accidentally called it Boiselle. But
Boiselle is running 3rd. Here's Buddy Lazier, who had an exceptionally fine qualifying, right up there with people that you would not expect him to have qualified alongside. He was in the same row as Al Unser Jr., who's won this race and is a former champion.
You can look at the water coming out. Could be fuel, but I hope it's water out of the left lower of Boiselle. I hate to interrupt you there, Sam, but on Lazier's car, he's got something coming out of the back end of the car really bad.
Later today here on ABC Sports, more auto racing as we look at the back of Lazier's car, whatever it was. It looks like it has cleared up. The racing action will continue. It is the final round of the International Race of Champions. The champion will be determined in this 4th and final round, where the mechanical advantage is taken away and the drivers are what matters. Good race, too. I might tell you, run here yesterday at Michigan International. You ride with Nigel Mansell, the leader of the race. You can see there are other cars lined up in front of him. You look back from Al Unser Jr. now, and we'll take a look at Scott Goodyear's car as well, where they've done that repair that was suggested that they needed on that car. Let's go to Gary.
Stefan Johansson has just been examined by the doctors. You appear to be fine. Can you tell us what happened in that incident?
Well, I don't really know. The car was pushing really pretty good all the time, and all of a sudden, you know, I came into 3 and it just swapped ends on me.
When it happens at this racetrack at these speeds, it's usually very, very big, and I would imagine you got to feel fortunate that you can walk away from this incident.
Yeah, I think so.
God, you're all right, Stefan. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll get ready to go racing once again. We'll go back up to Paul.
Stefan Johansson crashed on the pace lap at Long Beach, crashed again at Milwaukee and Detroit, and here today. So he's had plenty of wall time, fortunately no sheet time.
The most likely culprit for his accident, Paul, ironically, is probably a tire puncture. But when they puncture going fast here, the car swap ends up fast, you can't believe it.
Update on Fittipaldi, Jack Arute.
Paul, you don't think Emerson Fittipaldi's concerned about the championship? He wasn't worried about the tire. He radioed into his crew, "Where is Mansell?" That's all he was concerned about. He's very talkative today on the radio.
Now the answer, of course, there's his crew chief, Rick Reineman. The answer, of course, is that Mansell is at the front of the field. The yellow came out while Mansell was making his stop. The order as they come back to green for the race itself will be Mansell, Andretti, Boiselle, Fittipaldi, Lyondike, Fabi, Gordon, Tracy, and Goodyear.
Emerson is looking to protect a scant 3-point lead. Not much to work with.
So now they come back to speed. The green flag comes out, and we're racing once again on the 45th lap at the Michigan 500. And they spread out As the slower cars sitting just ahead of the race leader move over, and Mansell carves his way on through.
Mansell wants to put as much distance as he can to anybody. Remember, this track is kind of hard on traffic. The wind buffeting bothers everybody, the turbulence, so he wants to get out in clean air as soon as possible.
Brayton and Goodyear battle. They are a lap down to the leader, running in 9th place as Goodyear moves into 9th. And then Brayton takes it away from him.
On board with Scott Goodyear, that tape you see flapping, it's not going to stay on there, Paul. It's going to just slowly work its way off. But he has to have that little brace to the right side of his helmet, because that's what keeps up that 5 Gs in the corners, keeps his head up.
Looks like it's well taped on in other areas there, so let's hope that it does stay on. It was a quick repair. Well, what about a 240-mile-an-hour wind on the straightaway going over there?
Well, that's for sure. It'll have Velcro behind it helping it also.
Fittipaldi continues his moves up through the field as he just cruises past Allen Jr., who continues to struggle this weekend. Mansell's put 2 seconds on the remainder of the field. Second place is still Mario.
Mansell and Fittipaldi were joking with each other last night in the garages. Very relaxed. Of course, 2 former Formula One champions. Mansell is the defending Formula One champion now, battling it out now for the IndyCar championship.
Battle for 6th place. Robbie Gordon, the black car, the center of your screen, and here comes Teo Fabi, who comes to the inside. Again, they use Hiro Matsushita to try to get past him. They split him on the backstretch, and it looks like Teo's going to get into the corner ahead of Gordon.
Fabi has never won this race, but he was second back here in 1989, so he knows what he's doing out here.
Gordon got pushed clear up into the gray right there. That's an accident. Looking for a plate to happen when you get that high, but he did a really good job because Matsushita didn't see that he was there, and he moved him right out into the gray.
And look at him come right back on Teo Fabi as Fabi almost slows down going into the first corner. So it seems that Teo's a little faster up in the north end, and Robbie Gordon seems to be faster down here in the south.
Well, you know, the track is never the same on both sides. We see that at all the racetrack, and it's certainly showing up here that way with a lot of the guys today, Paul.
The talk is all that Robbie Gordon might be leaving A.J. Foyt at the end of this year to go with a newly formed team headed up by Michael Kranifus of Ford. Kranifus announced his resignation from Ford at the end of this year, effective at the end of this year, and the talk is he may hire Gordon for his new team.
Got a burst of spark there at the back of the car. There's a bump down there in that corner, and when these cars are on full tanks, they can set down right on the ground, and it will tend to throw sparks out back from the undercarriage. Might be good in some racing. In this racing, that's wearing away pretty quick.
Well, it does wear away a little bit, but ironically, in order for these cars to handle good, they have to get them as low as they can possibly get them to the ground. A lot lower than people would ever imagine. The driver, for example, is riding off the ground no more than an inch to an inch and a quarter.
Carl Haas, the owner of Nigel Mansell's and Mario Andretti's cars. They run first and second right now, and you are on board with the race leader, Nigel Mansell. Tracy, they're all trying to stay on the lead lap. We'll just listen to the throttle response here.
Boy, good luck keeping up with this guy. Look at Mansell come, modulating the throttle a little bit, but lining up his prey and just sweeping by on the low side. No problem.
Fast Tracy.
He's not modulating that throttle. He's holding that thing pretty near to the floorboard all the way around, guys. He is really hooked up 221 miles an hour.
Boy, you're right, Bobby. It's what I would have done, which was modulate the throttle. That's why I mentioned it. Of course, a racing driver in this situation, even when you're Nigel Mansell, defending champion, you still feel an exhilaration when you know you've got the car of the day. Remember, just 2 weeks ago, back in Toronto, Mansell's car was terrible for him. He crashed out of the race midway through. Now he, of course, is back on top.
In the meantime, Arie Luyendyk being challenged now by Fittipaldi. This is a battle for 4th place. Arie Luyendyk started 3rd here. Look at the the serial scoring as he fell backwards and then has been since the pit stop steadily moving back forward in this field.
You know, Lyondike, of course, shone at Indianapolis where he finished second. And here he is shining again. And, of course, there, as you see Emerson Fittipaldi right there with him, he's had a miserable year, Lyondike has, everywhere except these super fast tracks.
He doesn't seem, he came from road racing, Sam, and he doesn't seem to like or go fast on road racing at all. He doesn't go fast on the miles. He only goes fast, as you said, on the real fast speedways like here and Indianapolis. And that's not going to be enough to satisfy the car owners. He's going to either have to get it up or he's going to have a hard time finding the ride next year.
Well, the team, of course, is switching to the Renard car away from the Lola. They'll have a new car, all new, next year.
Traffic ahead. We will try and give you more of those graphics that do bring you up to date on an individual car's progress through the field with the serial scoring. Mansell still in front, Andretti in pursuit, but a full 5 seconds back.
Cars are passing all over the racetrack. The passes are happening so fast back in there sometimes. There's little Al. Tracy's right behind him. There's Lyondike. They're really trying to go for a few positions right now. Some of them realize that that yellow flag came at a bad time for them. And they're trying hard to make up the difference.
Unser Jr. trying to stay in there at the pace, but he is a lap down, running in 13th place right now.
He was the first car that came in on the yellow. Of course, he didn't know it was going to turn yellow and his crew didn't, but nonetheless, he was really bad luck on that one.
Bobby, a lot of speculation on what little Al will do next year. We've got some telemetry from on board his car. I'll give you an idea what the speeds and the RPMs are coming off of this Chevrolet engine. Flat on the throttle right there. Now
you can see he's backing off quite a bit. Now he's 100%. We're down the front straightaway. Let's go into turn one with him and watch and see what it does here. 100% still, and there's 84, but 24%. Now that's backed off all but about a quarter of the throttle. He's still not on it all the way. Still not on it. There, he's finally got it open. Now, there's where he's losing his speed, and they know this through the telemetry or through the computer systems, Paul. He's having handling problems.
So what's he going to do about it?
There's nothing they can do except try to adjust the wings during the race. But the mechanical setup, like the springs and the roll bars and all, are already set before the race. So he's going to have a hard time the rest of the day.
Gary Gerald, update on Al Unser Jr.
One of the reasons, Paul, that he's battling to get unlapped after they came back to green following the Johansson incident, he cut down a tire. They don't know if it was debris or what, but he had to make an extra stop. It's a heavy price to pay because he had to do it under green.
Emerson Fittipaldi able to move around the 14 car of Robbie Gordon. Now stretches out a little distance. Al Unser Jr. Boy, look how fast he spit.
Boy, he just ran out of air across the front of his wings there for a second. That's scary.
Now you can see on the right side of little Al's head, there's the thing that's holding him up like we see Scott Goodyear. Only Scott's is a lot lower. But if these guys don't have something to hold their heads up, they can't do it. There's the guy here strong enough to hold their head up during the whole race.
So 60 laps of the Michigan 500 are now complete. The leader of the race, the second one of the day, is Nigel Mansell. In second place, Mario Andretti, as Roger Penske watches both of his cars. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
The Michigan 500 is brought to you by Budweiser. Fresh, pure, natural, proud to be your bud. By Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. And by Goodyear, #1 in tires.
Back at the Michigan 500, 65 laps of 250, 500 miles complete. Nigel Mansell leads the race, followed by Mario Andretti, his teammate, Raul Boesel in third. Ari Lyondike now runs in fourth position, and just behind Ari, and now beginning to challenge, is the lead Penske car of Emerson Fittipaldi. Robbie Gordon is running in sixth position now.
Fords occupy 7 of the top 10 positions, but remember, at Indianapolis, 6 of the top 7 were Fords, but the winner was a Chevrolet with Emerson Fittipaldi, and again, Fittipaldi is the high-placed Chevrolet in the mix.
Ari Lyondike, the red and black 10 car with Emerson Fittipaldi closing in. Speeds on the last lap, they're running right at 216 miles an hour. With the yellow flag, the average speed of the race dropped to 176 miles an hour.
Yeah, there's Emmo on the right. There's Lyondike on the left. They're really trying a lot harder right now than you think they would kind of in the middle of the race. Emmo is, of course, like Sam mentioned earlier, really going for the point steal. He can't get caught too far behind Mansell and Mario. so he's really putting the pressure on Lyondike.
Leaders of the race are just flying. In fact, they're beginning to close on this battle. Only the top 6 cars are on the leader lap now as there goes Fittipaldi.
You can just see what a draft does here. You can see Emily pulled up closer. The draft just started sucking him to Lyondike. Pretty soon he had to whip it to the left to keep from hitting him. That's how much draft you get here.
So Fittipaldi has 4th.
Yes, but as fast as these two men are going, right behind them on the racetrack, just 6 seconds back, is Nigel Mansell, about to put them both a lap down. That's how fast he's going. Here he comes. Those 2 cars of Fittipaldi and Lyondike are just ahead of him up the road.
Back with the leader, Nigel Mansell, having never raced here at Michigan International Speedway or on any high bank speedway before. We asked Nigel if he'd undergone any kind of special preparation for this race.
I watch film of every single race we go to, and I think the greatest thing that's happened to me before this race is I spent 4 days with a great friend, with Greg Norman and children. And, we had a wonderful number of days fishing and messing around. And that's conditioned me pretty good because I got my mind sort of clear of a lot of things, and I've come here totally refreshed now, and hopefully for the next number of races, we'll be able to sort of get back really up to speed and then do some good dogfighting.
He enjoys a very special relationship with golfer Greg Norman.
You know, it's almost as if the pressure of leading the championship, which he has done since Long Beach, he led it, of course, by winning the first race, slipped back of Mario Andretti at Phoenix, and then led the whole way until Emerson Fittipaldi notched him. Now he's like back in the fighting Mansell mode, trying to get back in the lead.
Ari Lyondike and Robbie Gordon as they battle. Lyondike's had his problems here today. It is a battle to try and obtain 4th place. Fittipaldi is just ahead of this group. There's Gordon, there's Lyondike, and Gordon just sailed on past. Now the leaders beginning to line up. Here comes Mansell as he moves around Fittipaldi.
That was what
Fittipaldi down.
That's what Fittipaldi didn't want. That's the reason Fittipaldi wanted so bad to get by Lyondike a little while ago. But it didn't work, Paul.
I'll tell you, at no time in this season, here comes Emerson down, have we seen a car as superior as Mansell is right now.
Emerson Fittipaldi slowing down, heading for the Penske pits. He pulled off the pace quickly. Lyondike and Gordon sailed past him in their battle, and now he comes in for a stop. The tires come off. They don't look for the cowling, so it shouldn't be a mechanical problem. Apparently, these tires just went away very quickly on him. The crew checking tentatively at the right rear of the car.
Couldn't see any adjustments. He just needed tires. They most likely changed the stagger on the tires.
Stagger, the relationship of the diameter of the right outside tire to the inside. Why would they have to change that at this point?
They change them all during the race, Paul. As the track changes, the stagger gets changed. Usually they have about 2 to 3 different setups on stagger, which, ironically, during the race is the biggest change that they make, even bigger than the wing changes.
Let's go pit side and Gary Gerald.
Paul, a word from the crew that just serviced Fittipaldi. Emerson felt like something was going away at the back. The crew made a quick inspection while they changed the tires, topped him off with fuel, did not find a problem. He's now back out there. We'll see how it handles from here.
Well, of course, with the possibility of a tire problem or some kind of suspension or chassis problem hanging over your head on this very fast and dangerous track, you're probably smart to come in even if it drops you down a little bit.
Nigel Mansell with Ari Lyondike, the 5th place car just ahead of him. And very quickly, I suspect, Lyondike will go a lap behind the leader of the race.
Well, Mansell, for example, just a few laps ago, there he goes right by Lyondike. It makes it look awfully easy, even though they're both Fords. But he just turned 225 miles an hour when his fuel tank was still kind of full. Now, that's good speed with a full load of fuel. Not exceptionally good when it's kind of empty, but full, it's a bunch of speed.
He's running laps at 221 miles an hour right now. And then they call him Lionheart, the Italians, El Leone. He is so strong. He comes here within just a few laps. All of a sudden, he's running at record pace. and Raul Boisel, who now runs in third place. Jack Arute has an update.
Well, Paul, yesterday after the final practice session of the day, Raul Boisel came in and told his car owner, Dick Simon, let's change engines. No particular reason. He said, I just had a feeling. Well, what they found out after they changed the engine is it totally upset the balance of the car. When they started this race, they had a terrible push. They've continued to make adjustments, and now Boisel has radioed in that they feel that they have got the car back to the way it was performing yesterday, and they feel now they can quicken the pace and try and chase down the lead duo.
Why would changing an engine upset the balance?
Well, I'll tell you, Paul, what happens sometimes when you drop a new engine in, what happens is the balance from right to left changes just minutely. Bobby Unser could probably tell you more about that.
Well, Jack, you're absolutely right. What happens is the engine is actually part of the frame. And so the holes, when they put them in, there comes Tracy in, the holes on the engine don't line up just exactly like they did on the other one. If you were only off 2 to 3 thousandths, it would make the difference that Jack was talking about.
Paul Tracy into the Penske pits. One would presume that this is a little early, too. We're on the 77th lap. He last stopped on lap 41. You would guess he could get into the 80s. But perhaps he's suffering some of the same problem that Fittipaldi felt earlier. We'll try and update you on that. Clean stop, fuel, tires, and Tracy back to the fight.
Yes, and again, it doesn't seem to be any mistakes made. Penske has game plans when he starts his pits, when he starts his race.
More work in the Penske pits coming as Fittipaldi is coming back in.
That definitely has to mean that Emil's got a problem. And when Emil says he has a problem, it's not an act. He really has something wrong with his race car.
You're suggesting that some guys might be acting when they come in?
Oh, we've always questioned some of them come in, Paul. They feel things. It looks like what they're going to do is look at it, do some adjustment on the front wings, send him back out as ran as loose from what we heard from the last pit stop.
Whatever it was more than tires and stagger. Look at them pulling. They're checking all the suspension members, especially with this track and all the stress put on them, right?
Well, that's right, Paul. What I started to say is that around here you go so fast that a guy feels there's something wrong. He can't tell the mechanic exactly what it is. And if you ever rode with them and saw how fast 230 miles an hour is around this track, you know why they have to come in and check it.
Yeah, and of course the point is that unlike a road racing course where you can get to a slow turn and kind of kick it around a little bit, here you can't do that anywhere.
Bobby Rahal, 9th place. You're right on the nose of his car as he comes in for his pit stop. And you saw that the Newman-Haas team was laid out for both of their cars. Mario is already into the pits. And just listen here. They're waiting for Nigel. And beginning to wave him down. Remember, he had problems at Indy with these high-speed pit stops. Let's go to Gary.
They're changing stagger on Mario's car as he gets away in about 15 seconds. Now Nigel is in.
Whoa.
No problem as they went out between
Mario's
these two.
spun coming off the pits.
Oh,
He's now
Mario
reversed.
right in front of us.
Mario spins it around again. Whoa!
Keeps it running, Paul. And the crowd has gone crazy because he kept it running. Now Mansell, who had a good look at it, leaves.
Now let me tell you.
Wait a minute. I want to tell you that was spectacular.
Yes, it was, Paul. Now that was a good piece of driving. That was a good piece of thinking. Don't ever think that Mario's over the hill when he can think and react that quick.
Remember when he and Michael had a similar thing happen? Look at that. Locks him up.
Now watch, though.
He's got the clutch in, though.
He can't turn the car around otherwise. So look what he did, just like he was on water or on the snow, and lit perfectly. Now that's really some credit for him.
Remember, he used to be able to do that on those Formula One tracks where the guardrails are on both sides of narrow streets. He had room here, but he showed his skill.
Not that I'm suggesting he should retire, but should he ever? He's got a place as a stunt driver. There's no question about it.
Well, you know, Paul Newman raced in the Trans Am the other day. He's 68, and he said to Mario, I did okay. Mario said, you know, I think that just extended my career 10 years.
Now look at all 4 wheels are locked up. Now watch him kick the clutch. He revs the engine up, pops the clutch. He knows where to quicken. He releases the brake, releases the power. Now he takes off again. I'm telling you, that guy knew exactly what he's trying to do. And he was in desperation.
Yeah, that's kind of a bootleg turn. He'd be good at parallel parking or, you know, escaping the run runners.
I'll tell you what. The officials have looked over that one, scratched their heads, checked the rule book, and they say it's legal. No problem. So Nigel Mansell makes his stop, gets in and out. The lead, Ari Luyendyk is in. Gary Gerald.
Well, everybody at this end of the pits still collecting their breath after the Mario dramatics. Luyendyk's crew now, they're in the first pit, closest to pit out, servicing Luyendyk. He had inherited the lead when the others came in. He's away with a routine stop, and boy, he lights up the tires as well.
Of course, being very careful because the speed limit on pit road is 110 miles an hour. You hit 115 and they are going to bring you in for a stop-and-go penalty. Bobby Unser, a stop-and-go here can really cost you because it means that it's going to put you easily a lap behind the race. So now we are at lap 85 in the Michigan 500. Mansell is the leader.
This track back is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealers. Have you driven a Ford lately? In IndyCar racing, weight saving is of a premium, and the crews will work very hard just to save a pound or two on the chassis, but there is an area that they can save 40 whole pounds in one fell swoop. This is a cast iron standard brake rotor that can be replaced with a carbon fiber brake rotor, and if you add in carbon fiber pads, you can save a total of 40 pounds. Another advantage of a carbon rotor is since it's one solid piece of carbon, it has less of a tendency to explode at very high speed. There is, however, a few disadvantages. This carbon system costs $6,000, which is 3 times as much as the standard system. And so therefore, IndyCar has banned the use of carbon brakes in all racetracks with the exception of the high-speed tracks of Indianapolis and Michigan. Now there is another drawback, and that is that you have to warm up carbon brakes first before they work. So on a high-speed oval, if you go for the brakes, they may not be there. Most teams will opt on the high-speed tracks for the carbon system, even though it's more expensive, and then remind the driver, make sure you warm up those brakes before you come in for that first pit stop.
Back at Michigan, Emerson Fittipaldi into the pits again, Gary Gerald.
Paul, this is the 4th time that he's been in the last 18 laps. They came in thinking there was a problem with the rear of the car. They changed tires, routine service didn't address it. They've changed cross-weight, they've changed suspension parts. They're adjusting everything they can, changing tires each time. Car's not working. Emo is not a happy season points leader. They think, however, maybe this time it'll be better.
Of course, what it's doing having an impact on his championship. The Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company has dispatched its blimp, the Spirit of Akron, to hover overhead our aerial views here today coming from that blimp. The Goodyear blimp is a familiar sight over major events such as this one. And Fittipaldi, obviously with his problems, is now well behind in the points fight. And Nigel Mansell, should the race end as they stand now, is back into the points lead. Robbie Gordon, Ari Lyondike, they battle. It's a battle for fourth.
If all those changes they did on Emo doesn't fix his car, he'll come in, Paul. There's Lyondike slowing down for something. He'll come in because they all know they made some drastic changes there. Both staggered the tire, took all the front wing out, or a whole bunch of it. That doesn't fix it. They'll come in knowing that there's something in the car broken.
If he slowed down, or just perspective, because Lyondike is staying in pursuit of Robbie Gordon. They are 1 lap behind the leaders, battling for 4th place. Again, the top of the order, Mansell, Bosell, Mario Andretti. Mario, despite that spin in the pits, but he is very close to being put a lap down by his teammate, Nigel Mansell.
Robbie Gordon, one of the 8 men who started this race that had not raced here before. 1/3 of the field had not raced here before. And neither had Lynn St. James, by the way.
Cars out of the race. Jeff Wood with handling, Buddy Lazier with oil pressure, Stefan Johansson with a crash, and Lynn St. James is also out, Jackaroo.
That's right, Paul, the Spirit of the American Woman, and we understand that this is your last race for this year only.
Glad you got that right. Yeah, only for this year. You know, we probably had the best race of my career going. The JCPenney Spirit of the American Woman Nike car was running so good. I mean,
Well, what put you out?
It's electrical. We checked all the external electrical, all the switches and everything. They all check out fine, so it's something internal, but it just makes you hungrier for next year.
How do you answer your critics, Lynn? You know, a lot of people said that you maybe didn't push the button as hard as you could have this year.
I was pushing the pedal as hard as I could without putting it in the wall and doing something stupid. So I got a learning curve to go through, and I need time in a car, and that's what we're going to do in the off-season and do some testing and get ready to come back strong next year.
And, Paul, we'll see her next year.
Jack, she's expecting to have some surgery on
That's
an elbow,
right.
isn't she?
You know, Lynn, we understand the off-season. You may have to undergo the knife and have some surgery. What's the situation there?
Yeah, this Thursday I'm going to have arthroscopic surgery on my right elbow. My pitching arm has got a little problem, so Dr. Andrews down at Alabama Sports Medicine Clinic and HPI and Daytona Beach and Jerry Trammell have all worked together so it's working out from a time standpoint. I can get it done, get rehab, and get back to driving in the off-season.
And watch her next year. She'll be back.
And Trammel's working on her, no problem.
You know, she said something very candid the other day. She said, I really did underestimate IndyCar racing. And I think that IndyCar racing in some ways has underestimated her. She's extremely determined and more talented than her occasional appearances in this first year have allowed her to show. I'm glad she'll be back.
Mario Andretti just passed by Nigel Mansell. Mario runs third, so now only 2 cars, Nigel Mansell and Raul Boesel, run on the lead lap. And Boesel is 31 seconds behind, so he'll appear in the windscreen of Mansell's car very shortly.
Well, Mansell right here, Paul, is the guy that theoretically didn't like this racetrack when he got here, said nothing but bad things about it. And look at the guy, just totally dominating, running away with the race.
Averaging 186 miles an hour now. Nigel Mansell, the leader. There have been 3 lead changes, but the battle has been between Nigel and his teammate, the pole sitter, Mario Andretti. 1 caution for Stefan Johansson's accident, and Buddy Lazier, Lynn St. James, and Jeff Wood all out of the race, as we mentioned just a moment ago. And Mansell is just carving through this field like a hot knife through butter.
You know, on the tires here, like for example, Johansson probably ran over something and popped the tire, Paul, but they don't have liners or inner liners in them like the stock cars do. So if they have any debris on the track and run over it, it's an instant blowout. Even though it's a cut in the tire, it's a blowout to the handling.
Well, Bobby, if it is that, why don't they have them?
It causes too much heat. And they would just generate too much heat, and they would have to almost go to a stock car type tire, and that just is not what IndyCar racing is all about.
Well, you saw the pass there. That was Raul Boesel that just disappeared in his rearview mirrors, and so Nigel Mansell runs alone a full lap ahead of the rest of the race.
The car he's passing right now is Bobby Rahal, the defending IndyCar champion. The once and future IndyCar champions perhaps running close together. It certainly looks as if Nigel Mansell taking a tremendous lead in the points if he is able to keep this lead in the race here today over Emerson Fittipaldi. Then there would be just 6 races left to go, and he might very well have a stranglehold on the championship.
You know what I find is so fascinating, that where one would presume Mansell would have had an opportunity is, once again, here we watch Robbie Gordon and Ari Lyonzike, their continuing battle, and Ari gets past Robbie Gordon there. Again, Hiro Matsushita key in the battle. Well, and here comes Gordon right back. We'll stay on this one for a minute.
Now, he just used Matsushita's air to get a good draft right by Lyondike. Lyondike should have lined up behind Matsushita right there. He made a little bit of mistake, but Gordon, hey, that kid's learning pretty quick, Paul.
I was going to suggest to you that Nigel Mansell, with his background in road racing, one would expect that he would have really surged ahead during the series of road races they've just come off of. Now here we are on a super speedway. He's got a lap on the full field, and another oval to expect at Loudon next week.
Yeah, and of course after that a bunch of road races. I think the real issue had been the superiority of the Penske chassis. Here comes Lyondike setting up Matsushita, easily moving by. Lyondike's been blowing a little hot and cold today, seeming fast at one point, then he'll pedal out of it and not be fast for a few laps.
Yeah, and back on Mansell, what Paul was talking about, Sam, is that it's just amazing that a guy that came from road racing, never did an oval track in his life, and he's really dominating more and going faster on the ovals than he does on the road circuits. And I think that's amazing, but it's a very similar thing to happen to this guy, Ari Lyondike.
There's no question that Mansell is very special. Ari, traveling alone on the circuit now, occupies alone 5th place. Started 3rd, was in that early battle, and then fell backwards, fell well back, and has now come back to 5th. But this is a position that he's fallen back to after being passed by Robbie Gordon for 4th. So the Michigan 500 now with 105 as Nigel Mansell clicks across the stripe. Laps into the record book. 500 miles, the total distance, 250 laps. In the pits, they watch their cars. It's quiet for the moment, but very soon it will get very busy here once again. We'll be back with more. Back at the Michigan 500, you're looking at the new 2nd place car. Just seconds ago, Mario Andretti forced his way past Raul Boesel and moved into 2nd place, 1 lap behind his teammate, the leader, Nigel Mansell. Nice smooth pass. Boesel was holding off as hard as he could, but Mario was not to be denied.
Well, Mario's back working, handling pretty good again. I watched him go by Lyondike and did it on the high side, entering a turn and through the turn. Quite an achievement. It means he's really handling good.
On board with the leader. Let's take a look at that pass. Here was Mario setting up Boesel just ahead of him.
There he's getting a good draft. Now watch that draft really sucking him by. There, right. Whoa. Look at there. Now, you just wonder about passing on the outside right there, but there he goes right on by. Hopefully, Boesel doesn't move over it.
But you can see, I mean, Boesel is a guy you can trust, and Mario knows that, and he was able to make that pass.
This is Ari Lyondike and Robbie Gordon. They continue a battle for 4th place. Look at Ari as he cuts down to the inside.
Now the story here would be that Robbie Gordon is losing in the corners because he doesn't have a helmet strap on. His head gets tired. Nobody can hold him up in the turns without it.
Now, there are a couple guys with problems. Let's start with Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, Bobby Unser is absolutely right. He broke the helmet strap. Now, what the helmet strap does is hold your head erect with a strap that goes under your armpit. You see the work going on in the A.J. Foyt pit right now. They are fashioning a special cushion that they will wedge between the helmet and the right side of the car. Now, he radioed in, Robbie Gordon did to A.J. Foyt, the buffeting is so bad I can't keep my head up. He is having a problem focusing and has had to crock the throttle just a bit. Let's check in with Gary Gerald for some more problems.
Well, we heard earlier about the fact that Scott Goodyear had lost his headrest, so they've gone to the backup car. They've pulled this headrest out. The problem was that a brace underneath here broke. Now they've taped this up in kind of jury-rig fashion. They hope that they'll be able to wedge this in and that it will stay with these adhesives so that he can get some comfort for what has to be a very tired neck right now.
And, of course, Scott Goodyear, there it is with everything flapping on the right side of the car. They'll try and get that reconstructed properly. Robbie Gordon, he comes in now, and hopefully they can effect that repair, Jack.
Now, Paul, this will put Robbie Gordon completely out of rotation for pit stops. But that is how bad the buffeting was on Robbie Gordon's helmet. He could not keep his head up. So they elected to come in early. And you can see they are throwing out the tape, and they are now making the change. They're going to wedge with racer's tape a big piece of foam rubber between his helmet and the right side. You can see them working feverishly there, trying to wedge it in. But more importantly than wedging it in, you've got to make sure that it's secure at 230 miles an hour. This tape is only rated to 200 miles an hour. Who knows if this fix is going to work or not?
Remember what Bobby Unser suggested at the start of the show. Every second he sits there is over 235 feet being gobbled up by the other race cars.
335 feet, Paul. And I'll tell you another thing. Robbie Gordon doesn't know if that's going to feel good on the track. It's a terrible time to try to do that.
Well, Robbie Gordon almost spins it coming out. Gary Gerald.
Here's an interesting shot in Emerson Fittipaldi's pits. He's been in and used so many tires, and because the load has changed on the car, they're building up rubber on the rear tires. So the engineers are now scraping that rubber off so that they can reuse the tires. He continues to have problems. He knows he can't win the race. He's just trying to hang in as long as he can to get as many points as he can.
Now, let me tell you, anybody that thinks Robbie Gordon is a wimp because he can't hold his head up for a couple of laps out here should know the man. He is built out of iron, and he's as tough as it comes, and it's a testament to these high banks and the G-forces he pulls. If he can't handle it, nobody can.
These guys are pulling, Sam, no less than 3 Gs through the turns.
Paul Tracy slowing down on the circuit, apparently and obviously in trouble.
Well, Tracy started the day with an outside chance for the championship. He was a little over 20 points behind. He desperately needed a success today. There's Teddy Mayer there in the Penske pits, and this will really set him back with just 6 races to go after this. He's going to have to win virtually all the races to close the gap on Mansell. Not impossible, but a very bad development.
Saw the crew chief Tim Bumps look up there at Teddy Mayer, and they both kind of shrugged.
If you look at the tires, the front tires on this, it is running slow. They're picking up rubber. Look at the rubber building up on the tires. We watched Tracy coming in. Now, what's happened when you see, look at the rubber build up on it there. When you see the car spinning,
down here, what's that,
there's
Bobby?
the flood. There's oil coming out. Oil and water, oil or water, or both of them. Wow. That looks like water because that's where the radiator is.
I'd say then it isn't a tire problem, and where he stopped on the course, it will definitely bring out the yellow flag.
So what's happening to the guys when we see the tires being scraped there? They're scraping off the rubber, so when the guys leave the pits, they don't spin. Obviously, that's what spun Mario out, and you saw Robbie Gordon. You saw Robbie Gordon getting sideways there.
Still haven't decided for yellow. Now they make the decision. And so The yellow comes out for the second time today at the 119th lap with Nigel Mansell still the leader of the race, but this will give the rest of the field an opportunity at least to close up and get back in contact with one another again. Nigel Mansell takes advantage of this yellow to come in. It's been 37 laps since he last stopped, so this comes at a most opportune time, Gary Gerald.
Absolutely, Paul. They were scheduled to stop on the next lap. The yellow comes out. Here he is, and again, a very conservative approach, except this time too close to the pit wall. He has to keep the engine running, move it over. They get room now for the tire changers to work on the near side, but this is going to add some time till a yellow flag stop. No changes expected on the race car. Mansell has been absolutely happy with the way it's working at this point. Tommy Works tells him to wait. Now he begins to roll nearly 23 seconds later.
Just a tick over 23. Nigel Mansell under yellow back into the fight. Here is Scott Goodyear. They go to work once again. They get that tape realigned on the right side rest on his head. Teo Fabi makes his stop as well. He was running in 5th at the time of this stop. So the leaders of the race now make their pit stops under a yellow for Paul Tracy, who was at the edge of the race course and leaking fluid. It appeared to be maybe a combination of oil and water out the left side pod of his race car. So the yellow is out at Michigan International for the second time today. Now Paul Tracy continues to sit in his car and waits for the wrecker to come in and hopefully roll him back into the garage area. We'll be back with more from Michigan. Next Saturday, ABC's Wide World of Sports features one of the strongest American gymnastic teams in history. Reigning world champion Shannon Miller leads the U.S. squad against stars from the former Soviet Union in the Hilton Challenge. Saturday at 4:30, 3:30 Central on ABC Sports. Paul Tracy walks away from his car. Apparently the engine let go in some way there. Bobby Rahal then under this yellow came into the pit for a second time. A vent hose was connected to the car. He was responding to the black flag because they noticed that the vent hose was still there, but in the time that he was running out on the track, apparently the vent hose that was connected fell off. They hooked up another one, went ahead and made a tire change as long as he was in, and Bobby Rahal joined the line. So we are still under yellow at Michigan International, and Nigel Mansell is the leader of the race, but they will all close up now. Paul Tracy is out for the day. Now, what do these drivers do on a weekend or any time that they have away from the track? Would they go perhaps for something calm and peaceful, something different than racing? Emerson Fittipaldi will tell us. 6 a.m. Wake-up time at Pensacola Naval Air Station for the Navy's flight demonstration team, the world-famous Blue Angels. Using the McDonnell Douglas FA-18 Hornet, they demonstrate flying skill and technical perfection. Their world is much like the IndyCar team, so it was little surprise that they invited the PPG points leader Emerson Fittipaldi to fly as a passenger of Lieutenant Doug Thompson, flying slot in the world-famous Blue Angels Diamond. Just how similar are the sensations? Emerson would soon find out.
Ready now. Reach for the golden ring. Reach for the sky. Baby, just spread your wings. Get higher, higher, straight over. We'll get higher and I'll take it. Here we go. Go for it. Run. 3 points. Take it in. Okay. Best experience of my life. Let's knock it off. Let's knock it off. Let's knock it off. Knock it off. Let's knock it off. Let's knock it off.
So Emerson Fittipaldi takes a ride with the Blue Angels, but we didn't just set him up casually there. I had to go take a ride in Blue Angel 7 with Rick Young first, just to make sure it was safe for Emerson Fittipaldi. Let's go to Checker Route.
Well, Paul, Raul Boesel lost one position on that exchange of pit stops, and Dick Simon, there was a problem.
Well, yes, actually, we were trying to get out in front of Mario, and the guys made an exceptionally good pit stop, but the car would not go into gear. The clutch just didn't go in properly.
So many things you've got to remember, guys, when you come into the pits if you're a driver. It's not a respite for them. They've got to get it into neutral, try and keep the revs up, and then when they drop the jacks, get back out. A momentary miscue, it cost them one spot.
Could be very costly. Let's go down the pits and Gary Gerald.
No. Well, we thought there was apparently a misunderstanding. We don't have Paul Tracy. They're trying to find him. They parked the car in a safe spot over on the backstretch coming out of 3. Tracy has yet to be seen. That's what the scramble is down here. We have not seen him. So when we do, we'll talk to him, Paul.
Oh, we're still under yellow. We found Paul Tracy for you, Gary. If you can find a motor scooter, you might be able to catch him. He's on his way back to get out of a hot driver's suit and become a spectator.
He loves 2 wheels. He rides his mountain bike for fitness and his motorcycle for fun. This is his way of getting away a little bit from the crowd, including you, Gary, I'm afraid, right now.
If the race were to come to a conclusion right now, the points would be awarded in this way, with Nigel Mansell retaking the PPG points lead with 123 points. Emerson Fittipaldi, who was the points leader coming in today, suffering badly, and Fittipaldi's suffering continues because as Paul Tracy rides away for a change of clothes, Emerson Fittipaldi is back into the pits once again. So a long day, at least this time it is under the yellow, but Fittipaldi not really a factor in this race now. He runs in 16th position as he comes in for this stop.
Just remember, though, this is a long race with a lot of racing left to go, and Nigel Mansell has anything but wrapped it up. As we said earlier, a Ford engine has never won a 500-mile race like this, not the new configuration. So, and Mansell's physical condition, you talked to him the other day, Paul, his wrist is still a question mark. There's a lot of tough stuff ahead before he has won this race.
Let's get an update on Nigel Mansell now, Jack.
Well, Paul, this caution was exactly what Nigel Mansell needed. He radioed into his crew that he appreciates the rest. As Sam Bosey alluded to, he's still suffering from that sprained wrist, and the jostling back and forth in the car gives it quite a test, especially on a track this big and this fast. But he is also very concerned about the points. The most important thing he continues to talk about on the radio, outside of the handling of the car, is how many points are we gaining on Emerson Fittipaldi.
Well, let's remember, too, that Nigel Mansell has never driven a super speedway before, and the dynamics that act on the human body on a super speedway are different than some of the things that he's become accustomed to. When he climbed out of the car during practice after running an incredibly fast lap, jumping way up above 233 miles an hour, he came over to me and he said, boy, this thing is really tough to do.
Yeah, but you know, Paul, this man must be the fastest learner in the history of motorsport. Absolutely. When he came over here this year, there were all these things he hadn't done, and now he's done just about all of them. I mean, he almost won Indy. He won the mile race at Milwaukee, only the first mile that he ever actually started. The man is phenomenal.
And the driver that you're watching so closely, Raul Boesel, he runs in 3rd. We mentioned him at the top of the show. Boesel, consistent, still looking for his first win. Well, we're finally able to track down Paul Tracy, weren't we?
Indeed we were. Paul, we know it was a motor that put you out of the competition, and of course after your great success a year ago and the success of the last 2 races, tell us about conditions out here now, and how tough is it over the bumps today?
Well, I think the conditions were real good. We got put back by a yellow. We got stuck behind the pace car, so that put us a lap down, and we're just working our way back up. And you know, the track was good, the car was running good, and we were just pacing ourselves, and got in the draft with all those guys, and the motor just let go for some reason. We don't know why.
Well, I know it's a jolt to the championship hopes. We'll see you next week in Loudon.
Oh, that's for sure.
Thank you, Paul. Let's go back up. Paul.
We're coming back to the green flag now. Raul Boesel making a move on Mario Andretti. A battle for second place as they come back to the green flag. Raul using what traffic he can. You look the angle back from Al Unser Jr.'s car, giving us good coverage there. But now Raul is able to drop in behind Al Unser Jr., and Mario is able to pull ahead as he drops in behind Olivier Briard.
Now on the restarts, these guys will turn the boost up to the max, plus put it in the low gear, because traffic is one thing that makes it the most danger around here. The sooner they can get away from the other cars, the safer and the better for them.
Boesel back in contact now with Mario Andretti as the battle for second place heads down into the tri-oval and across the stripe. Nigel Mansell is unchallenged. He continues a full lap in the lead.
Bosell, known as a consistent performer in previous years, but this year he has really come to the front, unhesitatingly racing the big superstar names in this sport.
All right, let's watch and listen as Raul Boesel tries to chase down Mario Andretti. Scott Goodyear just up to the right. He moved past Boesel. Boesel back past him. Now he's back just ahead of Boesel. We'll watch.
You can hear the engines running. The guys at the most, as we saw little Al's car a while, go back off about a quarter of a throttle in the turn. But like most of them are, but not Nigel Mansell.
So Raul Boesel working as hard as he can to try to get back up into combative position with the top of the field. You look out the back of Scott Goodyear's car. Bobby Rahal, by the way, that was not a black flag violation that brought him into the pits, as we reported earlier. He came in of his own accord because he knew what was going on, but unfortunately, because he left the pits with the vent hose attached, it did require a stop-and-go penalty once they came back to green, which has been assessed. Also, penalties being assessed on Willie T. Ribbs and on Marco Greco for getting a little wide as they exited the pit area as well.
The rules are when you leave the pit area, there's a yellow line down in the turn. If you get above that yellow line, Wally Dolleback can put a penalty on you. And some of the guys do. Remember, they've been running well over 200 miles an hour. Sometimes that pit lane gets a little too narrow when you have to do it like at about 100, 125 miles an hour.
Here's Bosell using a draft from Rahal to make a move. This is looking back from Rahal at Scott Goodyear. Now Goodyear drafting Rahal past.
Rahal runs in 9th place. Scott Goodyear is running in 7th, while Boesel is in 3rd place trying to catch up to Mario Andretti. This is slowing him down a bit.
Rahal is another driver who is seeing his championship hopes slide slowly away from him today. He started the day in 6th in bad need of scoring big points. It doesn't look like that's going to happen.
The nose of Rahal's car.
Camera angle, Bobby, I know, agrees with me. We've shared so many exciting moments this season looking out over the nose of Rahal's car. This is by far the closest approximation of any of our onboard cameras. You see little Al squeeze by him here that we have ever had. This is the feeling of being in the car.
But ironically, Sam, it still doesn't show how steep the banking really is here. A person almost has to stand down the racetrack to appreciate how steep the banks are here at Michigan and what the drivers go through. But this camera certainly gets the closest to it I've ever seen.
Are you in agreement with that, Sam? So you guys are now in total agreement on something. This is great. Here comes Scott Brayton as he comes up to overhaul Bobby Rahal. It is a fight for 9th place, and Scott Brayton has him. Brayton gets past Rahal.
I think the law of averages caught up with Bobby, and he was right.
Sooner or later it had to happen, no doubt about it. Average speed of the race with 2 yellow flags now at 178.848 miles an hour. Race record 189.727. Al Unser Jr. holds that record, fastest ever. Nigel Mansell is charging for it, though. If he can have a clear race to the finish, he might be able to move back toward the record. We'll be back. This is Paul Page. We're back at the Michigan 500. The battle is back toward the front of the field. Nigel Mansell is the leader of the race. His teammate, Mario Andretti, in 2nd place just behind him. But Mario is a lap down. And for the past few laps, he's been doing everything he can to catch his teammate and unlap himself.
Try hard he's doing, Paul. We've just been watching it here. Look at him. Running up really close, picking up a draft. You can see he had a little turbulence on his front wing. Slowed down a little bit. But boy, is he trying hard.
Well, as we watch the two Newman-Haas cars leading this race, we realize how quickly the tide can turn in automobile racing. The last few races have been all Penske, Penske, Penske. Now, the irony is we come here to a track that is owned and run by Roger Penske, and his cars are not doing well. The championship is being lead, and the championship is being wrested from Emerson Fittipaldi by Mansell. And these cars, as you see them here, are running 1-2.
Mario Andretti tries his best to close in. He was the first pole sitter here at Michigan International. Now, 25 years later, he turned the fastest qualifying lap of any IndyCar driver in history. We asked him about the significance of that accomplishment.
Yeah, it has a lot of significance for me, a lot of personal satisfaction, and then of course the way my team just rallies behind me, I just feel so much like they deserve it. They deserve every bit that I can bring home, so that's an extra incentive for me to go after. And today we just tried, I think we did everything pretty right, you know, all of our guessing, you know, bang bang what we did last year, and triple satisfaction when it just all worked out.
You know, even Nigel, very, very complimentary of Mario, saying, boy, you know, at his age, he's still so very racy.
I bet he's calling the pits right now saying, hey, who's this guy passing me? I'm leading the race. He's a lap down. Who is he?
I think he's got a real good clue as Mario moves to the inside, trying to get alongside Nigel, and does so very quickly. Now, was that a solid pass, or was it an instruction? Was it a tactic? Nigel let him go.
No, it was a solid pass. Nigel didn't really let him go. I think Mario just been putting too much pressure on him, because those guys are not planning it. Nigel knows that if a yellow comes out right now, that Mario's going to come around, be right behind him, and that's like a lethal weapon.
There's the man, of course, Carl Haas, working in the pits, who would know what all the political ramifications are between these two superstars.
Take a look again at Mario Andretti. He closes to the back of Nigel Mansell, picks up the draft, and it works very well for him. Well, look at him just roll forward as soon as he's in there.
And remember, Mario, very much a man looking ahead in his life. He and Deanne, his wife, are planning a new house in Nazareth, actually on, I think, Michael's property, and he's looking for a lot more racing. This is not his last season. He's not hanging it up at all. Talk of founding a team.
Look at the speed. Mansell at 215. Mario Andretti cut that last lap at 218 miles an hour. So Nigel was holding him up.
Yes, he certainly was. But remember, it's just a shift of a gear. It's a gear ratio different. The more RPM they turn, and they'll turn about like when they want to, about 13,000, maybe a little bit more than 13,000 RPM. Probably racing them about 12,500 RPM.
But of course, if you are going to come down to a gear that's going to give you a little more power, you're also going to burn more fuel. We've had a race with only 2 yellows, and fuel can be a factor here. How wise is that?
Well, they'll only do it like a passing gear, like a kick-down gear on an automatic transmission, Paul. They know that the fuel is going to get bad if they sit there and turn more than 13,000 RPM.
And having a kick-down gear is something that all these cars still routinely do.
Yes, they certainly do, and they don't even have to use the clutch when they shift them. The gear ratio is only about 10 to 15 hundredths difference. But remember, the more RPM, the more rim wheel torque, or the more power to the rear wheels that you get.
Robbie Gordon, as he comes around Bobby Rahal, this is a fight for position as well. Rahal was in 10th, now Gordon has it. Gary Gerald, you have an update on Robbie?
Well, indeed, Paul. In fact, I think we may be able to get a word with A.J. Foyt about Robbie Gordon. A.J., you got a problem with boost?
Well, it seemed like it, but it's come back to about 44 inches. We fell to about 41, so I don't know unless the wastegate stuck or something, but right now it's not 45 inches, 44, but we're still running between 215, 217. If we can finish, we'll be in good shape. We just got by Rahal, move up another spot.
This young man's first time at Michigan. He's been pretty impressive on these high banks.
Well, that's true. You know, that's all we want to do is finish.
All right, AJ. Thank you.
We're past the halfway point, 149 laps into the record book, just about 101 laps to go. Robbie Gordon, there's the serial scoring. Great interface between our graphics folks and the computers here able to give us this enhanced information now, doing a great job down there.
You know, just stop and think now, when they put that pad to hold his head up against, he had to get reused to that all over again. So he spent a lot of time that we haven't seen him on the track just trying to get his driving accompanying to where his head is going to be and how the pad's going to feel. Because obviously he had a helmet strap before.
You see him rip by Emerson Fittipaldi there, of course. Remember that he, too, like Paul Tracy, is 24 years old. And don't think that Gordon hasn't been grinding his teeth a little bit this year as he's watched Paul Tracy succeed. Now Tracy is out of the race, and Gordon is on the move.
By the way, we mentioned at the beginning of the race the possibility of showers in the area of being 60%. It looks like that's drifting slowly and slowly away from us. It's bright sun over the track right now, and it does not appear from looking out the top of the giant grandstand that you see on your right there here at Michigan International that there is any threatening weather anywhere off to the west, and that's where it come from.
Yeah, and just look at the blue sky right out of Scott's car. Look at the blue sky up in the air. That looks so much better than it did for us earlier, Paul.
Goodyear runs in 7th place right now. Roberto Guerrero is just ahead of him in 6th place, and Scott Goodyear has been closing in.
This is an important drive for Guerrero. By far his best run since Long Beach, much earlier in the year. He's doing whoops as I speak of him. He's making a pit stop.
Guerrero has gone a full 39 laps since his last stop, so he peels off. Goodyear screams on past, and this should be routine for Roberto Guerrero. He's a little bit out of the pit stop sequence. Nigel Mansell has gone 33 laps since his last stop, so you would expect within the next few at least, Nigel Mansell will be turning down into the pits, and that will give Mario Andretti, who's on the same lap, an opportunity to catch up. They think he's about 14 laps away from the stop, though.
Roberto had a little bit of front-end push because I noticed they turned the left front wing up just a little bit. It's a nice, soft adjustment to give it one full turn, about 1 degree for a wing that small. Nice adjustment.
Like Guerrero, like Leinendijk, Guerrero had his background in road racing, but has really come to excel on these very fast ovals. Interesting.
Now, as you saw Roberto leaving, Sam, you could see he got over that yellow line a little bit. He's got to be careful the Wally doesn't see that because that's what the stop-and-go penalties come from.
Nigel Mansell still the leader. Mario Andretti, by getting around him, joined him on the leader lap in 2nd place. In 3rd, a lap behind is Raul Boisel, then Ari, then Teo Fabi, and then Scott Goodyear 3 laps behind. 154 laps complete at Michigan. Back at the Michigan 500, Teo Fabi, 5th place. Started in 8th, been running a very steady run. He's winless this season, driving for Jim Hall, the Hall BDS team.
That's a team that has, in the past, done very little testing, but Jim has taken over and said, hey, we've got to do some testing, development work, because we're sliding behind. And he's starting to run a lot better from it, Paul.
Testing, of course, is the order of the day if you want to be successful, but testing is also some of what's driving some of the cost of IndyCar racing up. So they're trying to limit that a little bit, aren't they, Bobby?
Well, testing wears out engines. Engines are, you know, you're looking at roughly $2.8 million a year in a normal engine program, so it really is costing a lot of money. And if you break pieces, that costs a lot of money, too.
Well, Fabi was 5th at Phoenix and 4th at Long Beach earlier in the year, but he has not had a high finish since then. And the team, ironically, seems to have been improving, but they haven't had the results. So this will be very encouraging as he lies 5th right now.
A lot of talk about a drug-free sport. You're talking drug-free. IndyCar racing, auto racing in general, definitely one. And in fact, the organizations that try and promote drug awareness do get involved with motorsports for that very reason. For example, today here at the track, as Teo Fabi makes his turn in, there were 25 police cars from the different districts here in Michigan associated with DARE, the Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program, with kids in the cars that competed for the opportunity to be here, and they're having a great time here today. Teo Fabi, 5th place, 41 laps since his last stop, and Jack Arut's right there.
Well, Mario Andretti, trying to bring his car to a stop, does it nicely, lifts up the visor, and will take some water and some fluids. It's been very hot here during the stop. A nominal stop for Mario. No major changes contemplated by the Newman Haas Racing team, but they are going over the radiator areas very carefully, removing any debris. He's off and away in 15.2 seconds. Nigel Mansell will be back in this time around, gentlemen.
Nigel Mansell has carried the car at 43 laps. He'll go 44 before he makes his stop. stop, and Mario Andretti carried at 43. Jack, here comes Nigel.
Well, Paul, interesting to note that for Nigel Mansell, he has requested no changes on his car during this pit stop. He has requested, though, a change for the drink bottle. It seems that the buffeting he's been undergoing has given him a severe headache. So his PR man, Mike Knight, has added several aspirin to the bottle, and they are going to take as much fluid on board as they possibly can. They made a very quick stop. Now it's being held back by taking on a full load of fuel, 16.9 seconds, a little bit slower than his teammate Mario.
Yeah, one of the things, Paul and Jack, that really gets to a driver that causes the headaches is your joints. All your joints in your neck always get pushed down really hard. Besides going to the right from the G's, push down, and that gives the guys a headache.
Boiselle trying to get out of the pits, but they had to get a little extra assistance at that rear wing to push him and get him going.
He's having trouble with that first gear. There's no question about it. We're going to have to look for that in the future.
That's
wonder if it's even a first gear there or a clutch.
Yeah.
It's a clutch problem. What they're doing, guys, is they're pushing and he's chunking it into first gear after they get it moving. Because they have what we call dog rings, those transmissions, they can do that.
Boiselle comes back up to speed after his stop, but that cost him a great deal. He's now fourth in the order, and he should drop even further down. Jack Arute, do you have an update on Raul?
Well, Paul, remember in that last pit stop when we talked to Dick Simon, he said they were having trouble getting the car into a neutral gear.
Right.
That's generally the first indication that you've got a clutch problem. As he came down to the open end towards turn number 1, you could see that he was definitely not in the throttle the way he should be, although you can hear the engine really coming up to sawing. The wheels weren't turning. It looks as if a clutch is going to befall Raul Boiselle. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Jack, we watch as Ari Lyondike glides in and hits his mark perfectly. He had moved up to second in this rotation of pit stops. Of course, now he'll lose some ground. Ari, who's been very fast on the super speedways, you can see a dramatic change. They cranked about a turn or a turn and a half up here in the front wing. Now he's off the jack in 14.7, I believe I heard.
And Gary, you see he declined his drink bottle there. Ari Lyondike is extremely fit, and evidently he is not suffering from these conditions.
Now they took wing out of the left front, as Gary alluded to, and that means that his front end was a little too tight. The rear end was a little bit loose. So Ari's chasing the track just like the other guys are.
Ari Lyondike, as he came out of the pits, and Raul Boiselle right there to make the move. They are a battle for position as Boiselle picks up third place.
And let's remember with Boiselle now, he probably doesn't have the hydraulic part of his clutch working. The clutch itself is good, Sam and Paul. What happens is it's hydraulic that works the clutch release bearing. The hydraulic is back there where there's a tremendous amount of heat in the bell housing, and that's what often gives way.
Nigel Mansell, the leader of the race, just cruises around Ari Lyondike. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, we talk about the wear and tear, the 500 miles on the bumps at Michigan. It's tough on the driver, equally tough on the equipment. One of the problems that's evolved this weekend pertains to this particular piece. This is Ari Lyondike's backup car. This is the hat on the bell housing, and there's so much jostling and traction back here in these parts of the suspension members that there's been a failure on a couple of cars. So many of the cars on the Lola chassis have beefed up this particular area for this race today. And it was through the hard work of the Gallus team last night that they updated a special fitting here to give this a little more strength so that it doesn't get that twisting and torsion action, that it would be able to withstand 500 miles. The last thing you want is one of these things to break when you're at these dramatic speeds, because it's going to put you in the wall and you're going to hurt big time.
Now you see that big dot on the right. You see the little bolts there. They put a brace right there down to the straight bolt, the big one that runs right down in the transmission, and that's what's going to protect it. Unfortunately, the guys didn't know about this until yesterday or last night when a bunch of them started breaking, Paul.
And of course the point is that there was no way to test those quick fixes either. So, you know, there's a lot of doubt in a driver's mind when he's going around here with this stuff happening.
Well, Adrian Fernandez had one break yesterday. He was very fortunate, Sam, that they came in just before it let go all the way.
Yep.
Further update on Raul Boiselle from Jack.
Well, Paul, we checked, and what the problem is just like the pit stop before, he cannot get it into gear. So what they're going to have to do in the future for pit stops, and there's a long way to go in this race, is they're going to have to push him off in second gear. That will make it a very lengthy time on pit road. They got to hope for some yellows.
A lot of serious conversations down in the Dick Simon pits. Raul Boiselle's pit in particular, as no doubt they talk about that problem, Jack.
Paul, that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to discuss what way to remedy the problem in the next pit stop. Because when you don't have the low gear necessary, then they have to try and determine what can they do as a crew.
Worst case scenario.
And gearbox problems on a super speedway, pit stops become critical and costly.
And of course, Jack, the worst case scenario is they'll stall it. Look at
Wow, cuts right through the middle of traffic. Puts the race car anywhere he wants. Only 2 cars on the leader lap. Nigel Mansell and his teammate, Mario Andretti. Everybody else is at least a lap back. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
The Michigan 500 is brought to you by Toyota and their full line of quality cars and trucks. Toyota, I love what you do for me. By AC Delco Automotive Parts. AC Delco, it's like buying time. And by Armor All. There is a fountain of youth, and we own the patent.
Tomorrow night, Forrest Sawyer hosts the ABC News Magazine Day 1. Then Heather Locklear and Suzanne Summers are out there looking for love in all the right places. It's rich men and single women on ABC's Monday Night Movie tomorrow night. We're at the Michigan 500, where right now Al Unser Jr. and Royal Boiselle are running with one another on the race course. It is not a battle for position. There's actually 2 laps distance separating the third place Boiselle from Al Unser Jr., who runs in 8th place right now. But they have been running approximately the same speed. And now little Al kicks it a little bit harder and gets around Boiselle. Al Unser Jr.'s normal teammate would be Danny Sullivan and would normally be running here. But Sullivan's car, which was practiced with by Adrian Fernandez, was withdrawn. Sullivan had the flu, had it so severe that they had IV fluids, intravenous fluids flowing on him on Friday just to get some of his body fluids back.
Now here's little Al again later in the race with a telemetry at the bottom of the screen, 100% down the front straightaway. Let's watch what he does in the turns. 51%, 42. Now that's better, Paul, than before. He was getting down to 24 and 30% on the throttle before. That's the throttle opening. His RPM is up a little bit, so he's gotten the car handling better. He's running harder now than he did earlier on.
All right, let's just sit right here with Al Unser Jr. as he closes on another car and watch and listen.
And just realize for a split second that Danny Sullivan is probably watching this from his home in Aspen and thinking about what it would be like to be in this race.
Now we'll listen.
It's really only changing about 1,000 RPM, so we're not hearing a lot, but we can certainly, from the onboard camera, see his groove and how he's reacting to it. The throttle percentage really tells us how much horsepower he's putting out.
And Bobby, the interesting thing is he's able to hold it at 100% throttle longer now than when we rode with him earlier in the race, so his handling has definitely improved.
We'll continue to listen. Every now and then you hear the song of Goodyear coming through there, too, as the tires kind of squeal on the pavement as he turns into the corner. Possibility for a team expansion, by the way. Gary Gerald has an update.
Well, Paul Newman, of course, an Academy Award-winning actor, has been involved in IndyCar racing for many years, but now there's another Academy Award winner that comes on the scene. This is Gene Hackman, who was announced today is going to be an investor in the Rick Gallis racing team. And Gene, you're sitting here now on pit wall watching your new partners hard at work. Tell us about the feelings and what's brought you into a very active role in IndyCar racing.
Well, it's really exciting. I'm really going to be a spectator, kind of a fan for quite a while until I understand exactly what's going on. But so far it's been wonderful. We're not having very much luck today, but we hope that changes.
Are you going to become a hands-on partner in the future?
Well, eventually I'd like to sit up here and maybe handle one of the drivers if we run 3 drivers next year.
And of Of course, you've been in the cockpit many times in different types of racing yourself. Will you continue that part of your racing career?
I don't think so. I think I'm getting too old for that. You can see this gray beard.
I understand that's for the latest movie property, Geronimo and Wyatt Earp. Of course, we've been enjoying you in the firm. Welcome to IndyCar racing.
Thanks a lot.
Paul?
Of course, he is, Sam Posey. Pretty good race driver in his own right.
Yeah, I raced against him at Long Beach in a Pro-Am sort of thing with Toyotas, and he was running a real strong second when I came up on him. He's really quick.
And speaking of stars in the sport, Willie T. Ribbs here today with a lot of help from Bill Cosby.
Well, suddenly we're talking motion pictures, it seems, with Gene Hackman. You know, Columbia Pictures and the actor Michael Douglas have purchased the rights to Willie T. Ribbs' life story. So hopefully that gets made, because this is one fascinating man and a very fine racing driver.
Sure gathering up a lot of experience today, Paul, I'm trying to say, because really needs some miles to get used to going from the Trans Am to the Indy cars.
And while we do this, talk to these other people, let me assure you, there is no one in contest with anyone for any position on the race course right now. Nigel Mansell and Mario Andretti run alone on the lead lap. Raul Boycel is third, Ari Luyendyk is fourth, Teo Fabi is fifth. In sixth place is Scott Goodyear, Roberto Guerrero. That little pass right there, of course, that put Mario back. He's trying to get him a lap down once again as they continue their battle. Al Unser Jr. is in eighth. In ninth is Robbie Gordon. Bobby Rahal is 10th. There are still 18 cars running in this fight. That may be a record for Michigan.
Yes, it's a bunch. It's been a good race, but you watch there, Nigel pulling over to try to lap Mario. He looked up ahead of him, and believe me, they have to look up here when they're in the bank. He says, whoa, there's another car right there. Can't do it. He had to back out and fall right back in behind.
Mansell, as you can see on the last lap, on 6 miles an hour faster than Mario Andretti. Mario trying to hold him off, Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, we have an interesting scenario unfolding here in the Newman Haas pit. In the case of your leader, Nigel Mansell, in checking with his crew, they feel that they will have to make a 1.1 stop. What we mean by that is they'll have to make one full stop before the end of this race for fuel. Then it most likely will be a splash and go in the waning moments, because the fuel window for them is so close. Conversely, for his teammate Mario Andretti, we checked with their crew, and they say one more stop, and they'll go to the finish.
Well, wait a minute. They both stopped at approximately the same time. Mario Andretti 1 lap before Nigel, and yet they think that scenario will have to play out?
Well, Paul, remember, you just alluded to the speed differential. Speed takes fuel. Fuel is what is of a precious commodity right now. So it could be close, but time will tell. And they're both really hoping for a quick caution.
And of course, anytime you run down into the pits here at Michigan International, you have the opportunity to lose a full lap with just no problem at all, and certainly can lose a position. So the end of this race now begins to set up some drama as Mario Andretti battles with Nigel Mansell. This is the only contest on the circuit, and it is simply Nigel and Mario trying to get off or on the same lap with one another. There are 60 laps left at Michigan. The Frenchman Olivier Griard just rolled into the pits very slowly. They take the cowling off of the car and begin to check the engine compartment. He's been running steadily throughout the day, though he's been running in the bottom 10 of this race, was in 14th when he came into the pits.
Here's another man who's a fine athlete. He has finished the marathon in Rome. He's tough. He had a big crash 2 weeks ago at Toronto down at the end of the pit straight. He was taken to the hospital for examination. He was able to shake that off and come back here as cheerful as ever.
He has an old Chevrolet A engine in there and a 92 chassis, Sam. He really did a good job so far today.
Scott Brayton, the number 22 car. This is his home track. Quite a crowd here watching and cheering him on. He runs in 11th place. Started in 7th. Had his problems throughout the day. Brought him back to 11th place. But the car is still in trim and running at speed. Perhaps before the end of the day, he can move up. But the real move, Bobby, before the end of this day, let's go back and review as we watch Scott Brayton this Nigel Mansell, Mario Andretti situation. Both of them have at least one more stop to do. That keeps them even, separated by a lap. But then Nigel Mansell may come in for a splash and go. And if he does, the pit stop roll in and roll out time, forget the time that he actually spends in the pits, it could only be a few seconds, could erase that one lap difference. And Mario Andretti could be right there and right back in the fight. Isn't that right?
You're absolutely right, Paul. In fact, the only choice that Nigel has right now is he can't reverse his fuel mileage thing, so he's got to put more distance on Mario, take the lap he's got, figure on throwing it away. This is all provided there's no yellows now. Figure on throwing that lap away, have a little extra buffer to make his extra stop and go, or not stop and go, but a splash stop that he'll have to make. It's a bad decision to make. But often we come to the end of the race and we see exciting things like the fuel mileage making a difference.
Marco Greco, who had his problems at the start of this race, couldn't get it started and did not take the green flag with the field, is the last car running on the course in 18th position. There are still 18 cars in this fight. In the meantime, let's go toward Teo Fabi's pit now. Gary Gerald.
Well, one of the quiet success stories today, Teo Fabi had boost problems early, started in 8th place. He's been soldiering along in the top 5, currently running in 5th. The crew's getting ready, in fact, right now for a Teo stop. They're hoping that they can get him back out. He can maintain a top 5 position. He finished 2nd here 4 years ago. He'd love to be able to get up there and challenge those Fords before it's all over.
Nervous moment for the crew. They know that what they do will count critically to the end of this race. As Teo begins to dial the car down off of the line, Mario Andretti comes into the pits at the same time. Will follow second place Mario Andretti, Jack.
Well, Paul, they're going to make some chassis adjustments on the car as they take in as much fuel as they possibly can. They are going to change the tire stagger on the car, and they are considering making a small wing adjustment. There they do. They go to the nose of the car, and this is not a small wing adjustment. It's a turn and a half. So they're going to try and set it up. A very slow stop, 16.5, but remember, it's to take on as much fuel as possible.
See Mario Andretti as we watch Teo Fabi, Gary Gerald.
And Teo just away in a 16-second stop. Everything appeared to be routine here. I don't think, however, without the luxury of a yellow, he can go the distance. He'll have to be back in one more time.
And you saw in Mario's stop, he was going to gesture just to reinforce what he may have said in other communications on the radio, exactly what he wanted at the front of that car. He's back up to speed now on the backstretch.
Well, you know, with Mario, the report on him being able to do that, or that being the last stop, shows to me that he's got 49 laps to go, and I don't think he can do it. I don't think he can even come close to it.
Leader of the race, Nigel Mansell, comes in, again playing it very careful, watching the speed limit, and Jack is right there.
And Bobby Unser, in answer to your question, I have to agree with you. I think it might be some psyching going on, but Nigel Mansell's team is having none of it. They're going about their work with no changes on the race car, but they are going to make absolutely certain they take in as much fuel as possible, because they have already determined and announced that they are going to go in and take it. Scott Goodyear is in the pits, but Nigel Mansell stalled the car for a minute trying to get it back into gear. Let's go to Gary.
Raul Boesel is in. He was running in 2nd place with this round of stops. They make a huge wing change on both the right and left front sides. Remember, he's got the clutch problem. Now watch the crew. They're going to push him as much as they can, and he'll limp on down pit road.
Actually, he gets a pretty good start out of the pits this time. He's not roaring up to speed, but he certainly is rolling faster than he has in the past. Here is Mario Andretti and Nigel Mansell as they are side by side on the circuit now. And Nigel slows down just a little bit coming into that corner in his pursuit of Mario.
Yes, and keep another thing in mind. They can't go 49 laps, as Jack and I were just talking about. So they're going to have to make another one. I think where the psyching comes in that Jack was talking about is a lot of those teams listen to television. They know that we stay up on what's going on, and they look to us for what they're going to do. So they can psych their team, their other teammates, or sometimes the competitors by listening to television.
I would hate to think that they make any judgment on how to win a 500-mile race by what you or I or Sam say.
Collectively, we make a good source sometimes.
Collectively, sometimes maybe. So the fight is once again in the Newman Haas team. Here is Emerson Fittipaldi. Jack Arut's there.
Well, Paul, let's give you an update on the condition physically of Nigel Mansell. He continues to complain on the radio that he does not feel well at all. So there is a big problem there, and a yellow has come out. This is the break. Marco Greco's blown engine is a break both for Mario Andretti and possibly for Nigel Mansell for different reasons. For Mansell physically, for Mario to take on that one splash he needs. Mansell will be able to too, but it could be a fight to the finish now.
Starter Jim Swintel said that he would, when he put out a yellow flag, if it was for some sort of debris on the track, which obviously it is because of Marco Greco, he would also at the start-finish line fly the orange and yellow and red flag, which is a course condition flag, to tell them that there may be something on the surface there they need to worry about. So the yellow is out here at Michigan International Speedway, and we're beginning to set up for what might be an incredible battle to the finish between Nigel Mansell and Mario Andretti. Floating over Michigan International Speedway, one of America's most enduring images, the Goodyear blimp hangs overhead today, keeping up with the cars on the track down below. We are under yellow, and Nigel Mansell and Mario Andretti's crews both have to be thinking about what they're going to do about possibly stopping again for just a splash of fuel. Yellow flag comes out because of Marco Greco having to blow an engine on the track. Now, IndyCar teams are constantly striving for more efficient downforce through aerodynamic advances. Some are introduced by the chassis manufacturers, while other individual teams by a different arrangement. Here's Jack.
In IndyCar racing, the creation of speed involves a compromise between the creation of drag and downforce. The bigger the speedway, the more important that compromise becomes. Now, the 1993 Lola chassis arrived from England with good downforce and good drag coefficients. But some teams have introduced these side fences to better accomplish the compromise. These side fences increase the overall downforce generated by the car as the air is routed through the side pods. It pushes the rear end of the car down, and the bigger the speedway, the better the stick. It also reduces the overall drag generated by that downforce because now the air is routed up and over the very wide slicks at the back of the car. In fact, drag is created for the most part in IndyCar racing by these big slick tires. Now, these modifications didn't come from the factory in England. In fact, it was an individual racing team that first came up with the idea. The Dick Simon racing team introduced these side fences to racing. And now, as you look at the field here at the Michigan 500, you find most of the Lola cars carry what we like to call Simon side fences.
All right, let's go pit side. A report on Raul Boisel. Here's Gary Gerald.
Of course, he's been soldiering with that bad clutch situation. He got away out of the pits last time with no problem, starting in second gear, then jamming it into first. Now they're going to bring him back in, Paul. Dick Simon says they were going to make a split-second decision. They want to top him off with fuel. It's still going to be very close as to whether or not he can get to the checkered flag on this load of fuel. He would have 40 laps to go, but every one of these yellow flag laps is going to help him immensely. So here's Raul now in, and not only will they go for fuel, they are going to change tires as well. So it's fresh sticker rubber. These tires are not scuffed. They made a big wing change, 1.5 turns the last time he was in. They're happy with that. Now they push vigorously. Second gear. He gets out of here in about 15 seconds. Let's go back to Jack.
Well, Paul, the brain trust here for Mario Andretti and Nigel Mansell, they have determined that in both cases, Newman Haas will pit to take a splash and go. Both cars are going to come in. There was a lot of conversation on the radio. Nigel requesting, should I or shouldn't I? They're going to play it not at all close to the vest. They're going to play it real conservatively. Come in because of the speed both cars have got, the cushion that they have. They're going to take the necessary fuel because there's still plenty in the tank. Don't worry about that.
Of course, they'll try and do it if they can under this yellow. You can see the PPG pace car ahead of Nigel Mansell. The lights are still flashing on the back, and that is an indication to the drivers behind the pace car that there is at least one more lap of yellow flag. Now, Nigel Mansell is going to peel off. Got to be very careful not to get past that pace car as he heads down into the pits and is going to pick up what should be the last fuel of the race. As the starter of the race says, on the next lap, we will go the green flag, Jack.
Well, that's a good break. I mean, it's a problem, but remember, Nigel Mansell is at the tail end of the pit road. He's towards turn 1. He again has a problem getting the clutch engaged, but once he passes Ari Leyendijk's pit, he can come to full song. Meanwhile, Mario Andretti going down 1/2 turn on the front wing. He is off and away, so they've taken on the fuel. They're ready to go to the checker.
Well, as they'll line up, Nigel Mansell will be the leader of the race. Mario Andretti come out in second place. Teo Fabi comes in and gets his flash and go. You caught a glimpse of Bobby Rahal, who did the same. So everyone should theoretically, Bobby, be in proper position now to run all the way to the end of the race. We'll take a look at the running order right now.
I've just run my figures on it, Paul, and they can both go to the end of the race right now if they don't use any more than what they have in the past. Nigel and Mario both gone 38 and 39 laps respectively, and so they shouldn't have any problem. Believe me, they'll be close to out the end.
And so with this yellow, Mario has closed up, so he is going to come behind Nigel Mansell as they come back to the green flag, and green flag racing once again. The green is out. We're racing. Mario Andretti is going to do everything he can to close on his teammate. There's plenty of traffic right there. Mario is just behind Rahal. Willie T. Ribbs runs down low. Into the first corner. Mario selects a high line, comes around Ribbs, continues his pursuit of Mansell.
Traffic playing such a big part of this.
A look back from Al Unser Jr. Mario trying to close.
And remember, there isn't a driver out there that's going to make it easy on you.
Nigel Mansell setting up behind Raul Boisel, who at speed is very, very quick on this circuit. Boisel is fourth. Lyondike is third.
Mansell had to get out of the throttle there as he came up behind Boisel. You see it's killed his momentum for a moment. Watch as he begins his counterattack.
This is the kind of thing that can cost Mansell in these closing laps of the race. Anytime he gets involved with traffic, he would love to get clear of all this so that he can deal with Mario on his own terms.
Do you mean the inexperience, Paul, because of not having run these high banks ever before, or the question of being blocked? Here comes Mario ripping by Rahal.
Simply the question of being blocked. I think inexperience is something that attaches to Nigel Mansell for about 3 laps and then forget it. He knows exactly what's going on.
You can see how close Mario came to Rahal when he was drafting him trying to get by, using everything that he could get, because they know they're going to have a shoot-off right at the end.
You speak of experience, this is Mario's 29th season, 385 starts. Just incredible. The next most experienced guy in this race is Bobby Rahal with just 74 starts.
I think it's so great that Mario started on the pole in the first race here 25 years ago and starts on the pole here today and is now in a shootout with his teammate for the lead of the Michigan 500.
And that Newman Haas is running again 1-2 as they did when Michael and Mario were 1-2 here. There is Carl Haas, the architect of this team. And they succeeded back here in 1989.
You can see him counting. He's figured up everything he can figure himself right there. But remember, another thing, neither one of these guys really have enough fuel to go on down the road fast. They must keep them in their high gear. They've got to keep everything a little bit conservative because, according to my figures, they can only do about 39 laps compared to what they've done before.
Mansell overhauls Boisel, puts him another lap back. Mario Andretti won this race in '84. His son, Michael, won it in '89.
And Mario was second. It was a great super 1-2 for the family.
'84, by the way, was the same race that had 15 cars finish, the most ever at the Michigan 500. There are 16 running now. Now Nigel handles up Robbie Gordon.
You know, he passed Robbie, and Robbie came right back by again. This is a problem sometimes late in the race. But again, there isn't a driver out there to give these guys any slack whatsoever just because they're leading the race. Everybody's cutting their own piece of cake right now.
And because of the splash and go, they ended up at the back of the field behind the pace car.
Oh, look at him come up on Emerson Fittipaldi. Robbie Gordon may be only 24 years old, and Nigel Mansell may be the world champion, but he isn't cutting him any slack here.
And the line that Robbie Gordon has been using, especially off of 4, he can't be more than 3 or 4 inches away from that wall.
Well, that's where all the dirty stuff is. Where you see the black stop and the gray start at the top of the track, that's where all the rubber and all the trash has been thrown up all day. So you got to really be careful getting out into that part of the track.
They're coming for 4 now. Mansell comes up, but not nearly as close to the wall as Robbie Gordon is capable. He comes around now. Al Unser Jr. lets him pass.
That's pretty easy there because that's a Chevrolet engine. The Fords are awesome fast compared to Chevys here in Michigan.
You see the interval now. Nigel Mansell to Mario Andretti. Still plenty of traffic for Mario.
The highest place Chevrolet is back in 6th place with Bobby, so it looks as if Ford's failure to win a 500-mile race is going to go by the board. I think they're going to win one here today.
So Mario Andretti continues his pursuit of his teammate. Nigel Mansell is about 3 seconds ahead of Mario Andretti. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Back at Michigan International Speedway. Here yesterday, they ran the final round of the International Race of Champions as Mario Andretti continues the challenge on Raul Boesel, trying to get by so he can catch up to Nigel Mansell, but he is falling somewhat back from Nigel Mansell. Well, the International Race of Champions taped here yesterday is next. Great race, and the winner was... No, I wouldn't do that to you. Stay tuned because there's racing here all afternoon and plenty of drama in the IROC coming up right after the Michigan 500. So Nigel Mansell is the leader. Mario Andretti is the key factor right now as he tries to catch up to Nigel. Mario is still having to handle traffic. Nigel, for the most part, has gotten through all of the traffic and is now beginning to inch away from Mario.
Well, Paul, Mario's not handling good. You watch him there, the right-hand side of the screen, well, a little red on top of it. He can't even handle Boesel. Boesel has come back by him, and you can notice that Mario's not making it good through the turns. So the adjustments that they did in that last pit stop were obviously the wrong way.
Mario pushing way up toward the gray on all of the corners now.
Well, Bobby, we noticed that on Mario's last pit stop, when the crew was adjusting the front wings, you saw him waving frantically from the cockpit. It's not impossible. You see him try. Boesel on the high line. No, that's a gutsy move by Mario.
Mario stays right in there in traffic, got up as close to the wall as I care to get.
Now, who would think you'd have this close to racing at last?
Boy, that is really taking a deep breath.
Boesel got captured right on the bottom. Mario took a big risk going on top, and he made it.
Mario is about 8 seconds behind Mansell. He had to do that or just forfeit the race. We have less than 15 minutes of racing to go. You see Carl Haas, he switched ends on the cigar there. Obviously, that's all he can do in terms of technical adjustment.
Roberto Guerrero comes in once again. Remember, he's been stopping the entire day off of the regular sequence, so this is really a routine stop for Roberto and will be the last in his race. Let's get an update now from Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, Mario is a 1kg driver. Remember, we just saw that move where he split with Raul Boesel. In the drivers' meeting, they were discussing what lapped race traffic should do. Many of the drivers said stay low. Mario raised his hand and said, I think it would be better if the lap traffic stayed in the middle groove. That way, if you're racing for position, one driver could go high, one driver could go low. In the case of Yogi Berra, maybe it was deja vu for Mario all over again.
Oh, boy. I think it's easy to talk about tactics and strategy, but it's quite another thing to execute a maneuver like Mario just did. I think in a sense, you know, he's fighting today for a bit of family honor. His son, Michael, has become an object almost of derision to the European press, elements of the U.S. press, too, and I think that Mario's pole position yesterday, and now this brilliant performance today, boy, it puts the Andretti name right up in the headlines again.
Here's Mario's move just a moment ago through traffic. We looked at it once again.
That was really a calculated pass by Mario. A lot of luck. The drivers did go where he needed them to go. It looked like a pretty risky one to start with, though.
When you think over his long career, you know, how many chances like that he has taken, it is remarkable that this man, Mario Andretti, is still driving a racing car in one piece.
Mario was running laps while he was in traffic with Boesel and everyone else at 211 miles an hour. But now he is up running laps nearly the equal of Mansell. Mansell's just a tick over 223, and Mario is at 222.
We don't want it to happen, but just think of the race we would have if we do have another yellow for some reason, hopefully not an accident. But these two guys are so closely competitive today that the shootout is really looking like a good one.
When Mario emerged from that traffic, he was 8 seconds back. He's now a little over 9 seconds back. So he is not right this minute running quite as fast as Nigel Mansell.
Part of the reason, of course, is that Mansell has a clear racetrack in front of him. Mario still has some traffic to concern himself with.
Toronto, there's Paul Newman there on the left along with Carl Haas. Newman, by the way, bringing out a new line of his special food products with great acclamation. Toronto was Nigel's first mechanical DNF of the year. The question, always the rap on Nigel was he was hard on cars. I don't think so.
So Nigel Mansell is in the lead. He's been the power throughout the race. Chip Ganassi keeps track of his third-place driver, Arie Luyendyk, the number 10 car. Arie is a lap behind the leaders. Of course, if they get in contact, he could benefit. So the closing laps now of the Michigan 500. Everybody is fueled up, and now Nigel battles with Mario. Back at Michigan International Speedway just a few moments ago while we were away, Robbie Gordon suddenly began to slow down on the course. He shut it down as he cruised across the start-finish line, and then he headed into the pits. We weren't sure if he was still under power until he made this turn, which sent him back into the garage area and out of the action. Gary Gerald's with him now.
Indeed, Robbie Gordon jumped immediately out of the car. I assume it's just motor related all the way, Robbie?
Yeah, unfortunately it is. We lost oil pressure about 25 laps ago. It started dropping, and you know, the Copenhagen car was running really good today. We were right up there in third for a while. Then we had a problem inside the cockpit. One of the helmet straps broke, and with 4Gs you can't hold your head up around here. And then the motor let go. It's really disappointing because both 500-mile races I haven't finished this year, and we've been fairly competitive.
As for your future, we know that you had the opportunity to ride in NASCAR last week at Talladega. Will you stay in IndyCars next year, or do you know?
I'm going to stay in IndyCars next year. I got a lot of things going on here, so we'll just have to see what happens in the next couple months.
All right, Robbie. He may be driving for Michael Kranofis to talk about his team next year. A lot of that speculation rampant, Paul.
Yeah, but look at that. He drives that far into a 500-mile race on a warm day here in Michigan, has all that trouble, and he's not even perspiring.
He's
Ron Bentley from Vancouver.
He's a young boy. He's got a long way to go yet.
Bentley, of course, is really the third Canadian in IndyCar racing behind Tracy and Scott Goodyear, but an enormously talented one who has yet to get the ride that will really give his talents a full chance to shine.
Scott Goodyear runs in 5th place while Nigel Mansell continues the lead. Jackaroo, you have an update on Scott?
Well, Paul, this is what Scott Goodyear's team is going to do this time by. Derek Walker and company are going to call Goodyear in to take on 10 gallons of fuel. Not because they needed to finish the race. They feel they needed to go up to full lean, be able to run in that top gear and be able to try and chase down Raul Boesel. They say it's a calculated gamble, but they feel it's the only way they have a shot at maybe taking over 4th position. So they're going to take on 10 gallons and then let it go. Goodyear on pit road, gets a sight on his crew, and will bring the car carefully to a stop and take on, as we said, only 10 gallons of fuel.
Watch that stick. They'll tap the refueler. They did. 10 gallons are in.
This is a gamble, but this is what automobile racing is all about, gentlemen.
From where we said, Jack, it would look like a bad gamble. He should have made a stop the last time. You can't really make a pit stop here without losing a lap. And unfortunately, it's just too fast the speeds here at Michigan to be making extra pit stops.
Goodyear running 5th. Boesel 4th.
Here comes Teo Fabi screaming past. That is a pass that will put Teo Fabi into 5th and ahead of Scott Goodyear. So that gamble may have paid off in the wrong direction.
It has to pay off in the wrong direction unless he's just able to have enough speed to go back by Teo, which is always possible. No tire changes. It's just fuel racing the same speeds theoretically that he was before he just came in.
He's catching Teo. This is a matchup between a Chevrolet. The front-running Chevrolet in this race right now is Teo Fabi in Scott Goodyear's sights.
With 5 laps to go, we continue to watch this battle. Mario Andretti is 11 seconds back from Nigel Mansell. Gary Gerald, do you have an update?
We understand that there are air fuel concerns for Mario Andretti. In fact, they turned down the mixture a click, leaning it just a little bit. That speaks to that conservative slant here in the last few laps. He wants to make sure that they can hang on to that 2nd place and not jeopardize falling out before the checkered flag.
You saw Jim McGee, who's constantly on the radio to Nigel Mansell. You also saw Emerson Fittipaldi into the pits and Scott Goodyear as he continues his fight with Teo.
Now he's getting it. Well, he's past the draft. He's going to drive right on by.
Fight for 5th place. Goodyear takes it back. So the adjustment to the engine, because they're carrying more fuel, he can now make more power, and he can race.
Well, he certainly got by tail pretty fast and pretty nice there.
Remember that at this moment last year, Scott Goodyear was on his way to victory in this race. Disappointed a little bit by this performance, but it's been a very solid race for him. Interesting, the turning of the tide. Penske 1-2 in the last 2 races. There's Paul Newman with Carl Haas. The Penske team now not strong in this race at all. The Newman-Haas team running 1-2. So the 2 great teams of this year, Penske and Newman-Haas, have swapped positions, so to speak, today. Newman-Haas back on top.
Nigel Mansell, if he takes this win, and it looks like he may move back to the head of the points fight. Nigel giving it everything he has, still running laps at 221 miles an hour.
Isn't it nice to see Paul Newman like racing as much as he likes it? Here he is, one of the best actors in the world. He likes motor racing better than he does his acting.
He watches much of our show, incidentally, in the early stages of the race back in the motorhome, and then comes out and tells everybody what he's learned.
So red number 5, Nigel Mansell, makes the turn onto the 4th turn now, and this time around he should see the white flag. There it is, 2 miles, 1 more lap to go. Will this make up for the Indianapolis 500? Certainly not in purse, but it may prove something both to Nigel and to his fans. He can indeed win at 500 miles. On the backstretch, just 1 mile to go now. Nigel Mansell on his way to his 3rd win as a rookie. He's won on a road course. He's won on a mile oval. And now, as he turns toward home, Nigel Mansell has won on a super speedway and won the Michigan 500.
Quite a good job by Nigel all day long.
And a 1-2 finish for Newman-Haas as Mario Andretti flashes across the line in 2nd place. Ari Leyendijk turns for home in 3rd place. Raul Boisel in 4th. And Scott Goodyear still occupying 5th that he just took away from Teo Fabi.
You can just imagine Roger Penske's feelings when these guys came and took his playhouse away from him here today. Really a good show for the Fords. Unfortunately, not too good for Chevrolet today.
And there's the Newman-Haas team as Mario Andretti comes up and waves his congratulations to red number 5, Nigel Mansell, the winner of the Michigan 500, and a thumbs up from Al Unser Jr. too. They do like this guy, and they love to race against him. Gary Gerould is in the Newman-Haas pits.
Well, Jim McGee, final conversation to his man. How about this rookie in this IndyCar business, Jim? You got to just shake your head in amazement.
Yeah, he is. He's amazing. You know, the team did a heck of a job. You know, the Kmart Texaco car really ran super all day. Both cars, and, you know, with Mario's great finish in qualifying, it's been a great day for Newman-Haas.
Indeed it has. Get to victory lane.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Paul?
You know, there's a guy, Jim McGee, that was with Bobby Rahal, ran his team last year. I just get to thinking that maybe they're missing him right now, Paul.
So Nigel Mansell leads 222 of 250 laps to take the win. We'll be talking with some of these IndyCar drivers, and then it's the International Race of Champions immediately following our coverage here at Michigan International Speedway. Now slow for the first time today, really. Nigel Mansell acknowledges the applause of the audience and rolls to a stop. Back at Michigan International Speedway, there's 2nd place, Mario Andretti, smiling, happy, non-pulsed at the completion of this event. He finished 9 seconds behind Nigel Mansell. Mansell, on the other hand, has not yet climbed out of the race car. As a matter of fact, his team is hovering around him. They've been pouring water on his head, giving him a drink of water. He is totally exhausted at the end of the day. Let's consider the difference in ages between these two guys.
14 years older than Nigel, but evidently the effects on Nigel are a great deal greater.
Now, of course, Mario's done this before. This is Nigel's first win.
Well, a lot of showbiz with Nigel, but he's an awfully good race driver. He certainly went fast today, but I do like to see that Mario, being that much older, looks like he could run another 500 miles, and Nigel doesn't look like he could have made it the last 400.
Well, Mario Andretti finished 2nd. We'll give Nigel a few minutes to recover and go to Gary Gerould, who's with Mario.
Mario, they're commenting here as you talk with your crew about how remarkably fresh you look. You've put in 500 grueling miles. You've got a few years on some of these other guys in here, and yet you look like you held up very, very well.
Well, I guess I'm thankful for that, obviously. I work at it pretty hard, and I take pride in that. I think it's very important, especially, as I say, at my age, I don't want to give anything to the youngsters, physically anyway. And I'm, as I say, I'm tired, of course. My arms are ready to fall off, but we're still okay.
Tell us quickly about that incident coming out of the pit stop when you looped it around and then you made that bootleg turn, kept it running. The crowd was standing, screaming, and you saved yourself a lot of discomfort and maybe great embarrassment.
Yeah, well, of course, but to get out of the pits were so tight, I had to turn really sharp to miss Nigel's tire. And then when I whipped it the other way, there's absolutely no grip. And there are two patches, and it caught me out. I just didn't have enough lock, to catch it back. And I figured, oh, boy. But kept the engine running, and then I figured, well, as easily as it spun this way, I know I can spin it the other way. So
high drama on pit road. Congratulations, Mario.
Thank you.
Jack?
Well, Gary, it's just typical. Once you get the adrenaline and it starts to settle, you come into victory lane, it all begins to fall around you. But, Nigel, first of all, I know you're exhausted, but congratulations. 500-mile victory, you're first.
Just fantastic, and all credit to the team. The team did just a fantastic job, and I lost a lot of my readouts on the dashboard, and I was relying very strongly on the team and Jim McGee to give me the information, and I'm just so happy. It's a fantastic victory for all the sponsors. But I tell you, I don't mind admitting I'm bushed, I'm tired.
This is only the second 500-miler for you. Is this more exhausting than your outing at Indianapolis?
I've never felt so rough. Personally, I feel real tired. And, the track's a great track, but it does, as Mario said, it does beat you down, and I'm beat now.
Well, you've run practically every great world racing facility, the current world driving champion. How does a 500-mile race now compare to your efforts in Formula One in the past?
I've never been in anything like it in my life, and I'd like to congratulate Roger Penske on this. The layout of the circuit is fantastic. It's so different to Indianapolis. It stands on its own. I mean, two great 500-milers, and I'm just happy I won this one.
And you got the points lead back.
Yeah, that's all credit to the team. I mean, the team just did a wonderful, wonderful job.
Well, a little bit of a cloud cover has come over. We're going to let you try and get your stamina back. Congratulations, Nigel. Let's check in with my colleague, Gary Gerald, with more news.
Indeed. Here's Arie Luyendyk, a third-place finish. And this was a tough ride for you because right from the green flag today, you had problems early that were forcing you back in the field, and you really had to play catch-up all day long.
Well, right from the beginning, I tagged there in the first corner and immediately was repassed by Nigel. And from there on, the car really pushed bad. The front end washed out all the time. And I had to get out of the throttle, so that really cost me, speed, and that I was fighting that pretty much all day, even at the end. And finishing third is great. The Target Scotch video team did a good job, but we were third, but there were a lot of people that were quicker than us, but they had their own problems. My crew did a great job in the pits. We didn't have any problems with wrong timing on the yellow flags. That also helped us a little bit. So we're third today, and we're happy with it.
Something about Arie Luyendyk and super speedways that mix very, very nicely. You're always strong in these 500-milers.
Well, I wish I would have been a little bit stronger today because Newman Haas team was really in a class of their own, and it would have been a lot more fun to be able to compete with them.
Now let's find out also about how your wife Mika and the twins are doing, because congratulations are certainly in order. They arrived here very, very fine fashion just last week.
23rd of July, Luca and Alec were born, and my wife is watching right now, so I'm Mika, and they're doing fine.
And we'll see you next week on the mile oval up at Loud.
Okay, thanks.
All right, congratulations on a third-place finish. Back to Jack.
Well, Gary, it's getting to be a regular thing with a top finish by Raul Boesel. Again, still in the points hunt. Again, a great finish. Again, challenging for the lead. And again, no victory lane.
Well, I guess we keep trying. It was a good race, was tough. We keep fighting with a push. And now we discovered that the rear wing is being adjusted by themselves. So we keep changing.
Let's go show what that is, because I saw you guys working on it. Check this out, guys. How'd you like to... Well, they tightened it a little bit. I was watching. It was actually...
Adjuster here, they keep coming back for the original position. So we keep fighting understeer, and we keep taking a wing out, and but the wing keep going back for the original place, so we keep fighting all the race. So actually, after we figured out that, my last lap was the best one, 2:25. So if we were having this from the beginning of the race, maybe the start would be different.
How about your mindset, though? This is an incredible season for you. Maybe you haven't gone to victory lane, but you're right there with Dick Simon's racing team, week in and week out.
Well, we just keep trying. We do the best we can. The car is very reliable. The team doing fantastic. We just had an engine change just before the race. We didn't know exactly what to expect. But again, reliability pay off. Consistency. My Duracell Lola run perfect. So everything was okay.
But Raul, so many people forget that you came here in a blaze of glory, then you were forced out, you went and you tried some other things, won the World Endurance Sports Car Championship, came back and was like the relief driver for everybody. Is this a vindication of sorts, your performance this year, of the rap that maybe was put on you in IndyCar racing?
Well, it definitely is. It's the combination of the team, the right equipment, my driving, my mentally approach, my physical approach. It's, I do my best, the team does their best, so we keep pounding, I'm sure need to happen,
Well, another driver that used the Michigan 500 in 1992 to break the door down into victory lane, something Bozell would like to do in the future, is with Gary Gerald. Gary?
Indeed, that man was the defending champion, Scott Goodyear. A year ago, you were enjoying all the emotions of victory lane. Different emotions this time, a top 5 finish, but what a long day, because when you lost part of your headrest, this became more of an endurance test than anybody could have expected or imagined.
Well, there's a few things happen. I thought, well, I'll just hold my head up, but what it does is your head's now on a tilt, so it's changed your horizon going around the turns, and that took some getting used to, but the guys in the McKenzie team did a good job. I'm trying to get it fixed up a little bit. It was actually a bracket that broke, so it wasn't perfect, but we soldiered on, and it wasn't too bad at the end, and we got the car working better. We missed a few sessions over the last couple of days, but as the race progressed, the guys did a good job. We did some wing adjustments, and I think we were quicker than where we ended up, but you got to be fast from the beginning to the end.
What does your neck feel like right now? Is there any feeling at all?
Well, it feels like somebody's been on top of me for about 2.5 hours, jumping up and down by about 200 pounds, and also feels like somebody's been putting their feet on my shoulders and pulling my helmet up, because my neck's all stretched on this side. It's fine now, everything's movable, but I'm sure tomorrow morning's going to be a little sore. But, we've got the highest finish of the year. We've run a little bit competitive on the oval. We'll look forward to New Hampshire and hopefully get the Walker Motorsport car there next week.
Yeah, we'll see you up there next week, and again, congratulations on another top 5 effort.
Thanks.
All right, Scott, let's go back to Jack.
Well, Gary, you're looking at what a 12th place finishing car looks like. It's resting here on pit road, and now we're going to give you a look at what a 12th place finisher looks like. David Kudrave. And David, too often we only concentrate on the front finishers. Tell us about your drive today, because you were in the heat of things, having to be concerned with race traffic and also with race position.
I tell you, my biggest concern when I'm going out to learn a new circuit like I have this weekend is the race traffic, that I do not cause an accident with one of the leaders. That was a concern, but other than that, I was running very well. And it was my first 500 event and first super speedway event. So 2 things in one, I got it over with, and it feels good right now. But a little tired and sore. People said that after today I'd be very sore, but there I am.
Yeah, but remember, you're a young buck. You're not that old.
Yeah, I get away with it, but still get some creaks and cracks there.
Well, also, one of the things that many people may not be aware of is the fact that you share this ride periodically with Montramini, who's that great Formula 3 ace that really has turned some heads with this car. Has that made you have to perform that much tougher when you get behind the wheel?
Well, I mean, I'm performing as best to my abilities right now. We haven't done any testing, and Montramini is a very good driver, but his specialty is in road courses, and he's got a lot of road racing specialty.
You're 27 years old? Are you 27 years old?
Believe it or not.
Boy, hey, Paul, I wish when I was 27 I looked like this.
You wish when you were 15 you looked like that.
One of the things I want to tell you guys too, because David, when I do college football for ABC Sports, I was at a USC game one day and I heard this voice in the stands. You're a big USC guy.
Absolutely. Well, I went to USC, and I saw my buddy Jack there, and I had to run down and say hi and tell him root for USC.
What about this year?
We'll see with the new coach and new team, so there we are.
Paul?
David Kudrev. Quite a following of fans on the West Coast as well. Now, there's still more racing coming up later this afternoon here on ABC. We have some other drivers we want to introduce you to, but coming up next, it will be the International Race of Champions, the series finale. The Goodyear blimp, the Spirit of Akron, hovers in a beautiful blue sky over Michigan International Speedway. Much of the crowd still hanging around to enjoy the post-race ceremonies after Nigel Mansell has taken the win here. But the story in many ways is Mario Andretti. What a spectacular day Mario had. Just a wonderful day. This though, was not the good part. This was coming out of the pits. Cranked her a little too hard coming around Mansell's pit. But does this deter a great guy like Mario? Absolutely not. He's got a solution to it. Look at that. Little bootleg turn, points back in the right direction, and off he goes. Something almost necessary, because without reverse gear, if he'd gotten up close to that wall with the nose, he'd had to wait for the team to come down and turn him around. And you talk about how hungry this man was for a win. Here was Mario as he closed on traffic, moving to make what ground he could. And look at this, high out of the regular groove up into the gray stuff where it's loose and gravelly and very dangerous. Never lifted at all, and passed 4 of them all in one gigantic sweep. You think this guy is still not trying as hard as he can? He definitely is. Let's go trackside again, and Gary Gerald.
Well, a big day for the Fords. Teo Fabi, unfortunately, is a Chevy driver, and you're kind of first in class today in 6th place, Teo. How frustrating is it when you come to the Super Speedway here and you see those Ford Lola combinations out there running those huge numbers?
No, I think we had a chance to beat a couple of the Ford guy today, but we had a boost problem right from the beginning. So it was, our engine was down on power just due to the pop-up valve. But I think it was a good day for the Pennzoil team, and we had a great race. The car ran perfectly to the whole race. We just had this boost problem.
It's been a season where your team has steadily been making some progress. Now you go to the Mile Oval next week. Do you think that Ford package will have that kind of an advantage on the Mile Oval at Loudon?
No, I think definitely the Cosworth is more powerful, a high RPM, but I think on the Mile Oval we can race with them.
A lot of people talking, of course, all this weekend about the roughness of this racetrack and how tough it is to manhandle a car for 500 miles, and yet you look remarkably fresh. Was it very difficult for Teo Fabi today?
No, I think physically the 500 miles oval race are very, very easy. You don't get very tired. And for sure, Michigan is bumpy, but I don't think it's a problem for a driver point of view. I think it's, everyone is afraid of something going wrong on the car just due to the bump, due to the load you're putting on the suspension.
Well, you had quite a battle through much of the late stages with Scott Goodyear. You end up here in the number 6 spot, and we look forward to seeing you next week, and hopefully it'll be a podium finish for you.
Well, I think the Pennzoil team is improving, and I think we deserve a victory before the end of the season, and we're working on.
All right, Teo. He was second here at Michigan in 1989. Today he has to settle for 6th, Paul.
Teo Fabi won 4 races as a rookie in 1983, including sitting on the pole at Indianapolis. Well, here's the final results with Nigel Mansell winning the second fastest 500-mile race in history at 188.203 miles an hour. Followed by Mario, Arie Luyendyk, Raul Boesel, Scott Goodyear, and Teo Fabi, whom we just talked to. Roberto Guerrero in 7th place, then Al Unser Jr. Bobby Rahal still in the top 10, trying to close points on the championship. Willie T. Ribbs in 10th. Scott Brayton, you met David Kudrev for the first time here on ABC. Emerson Fittipaldi out of the points in 13th. Hiro Matsushita, Robbie Gordon falling out at the end of the race, and Ross Bentley, the last car running. There were 15 cars running at the finish of the race. Olivier Griard, the Frenchman, and we come down to the final positions with Paul Tracy, Jeff Wood, Buddy Lazier, Lynn St. James, and Stefan Johansson, who was the only accident of the day. A long, hard day, maybe one of the toughest races there is, the Michigan 500. It certainly exhausted Nigel Mansell. This was as he pulled into the pits at the conclusion of the race. Race officials and team members there to help an exhausted World Formula One champion as he tried to climb out of the car. Let's go down trackside again. Willie T. Ribbs is with Jack Arute.
And Paul, he doesn't look exhausted at all. In fact, this is your first time ever in Michigan. 500 miles, you finished 10th. you're gaining in this sport.
Well, Jack, when we started at Indy, we were green as a banana, and every race we've been trying to build momentum. And coming here to Michigan, it's a very fast place, and you know, if you can get the car balance right, you can do well. The first 2 sets of tires, we weren't strong at all. I could hardly go fast, and I lost a lot. But from then on, we could run pretty decent, and we made up ground, and thanks to a good team and a good sponsor.
With the support of Bill Cosby and Service Merchandise, what has that done for your mindset as a driver, knowing you're going to be here week in and week out now?
Well, you can concentrate. You know, I mean, before you're not worried about where the dollars are coming from. You know, with a sponsor like Service Merchandise and Cosby, I mean, you think you would have the military budget, you know what I mean? But still, I mean, you're dealing with teams here that have a military budget. So you want to keep the momentum building. I mean, it's my first time here in Michigan, and I'm happy with it. I mean, we were running pretty decent, pretty fast then, so just continue the momentum.
Any close calls for you today?
A couple, but just with lap cars. But, you know, that's part of this business. I mean, like my younger brother says, you knew the job was dangerous when you took it.
Paul, probably the funniest story is on the way out to the racetrack today, we were in very tight company, and guess who passed our car and about 5 others as he tried to go around to come to the racetrack? This guy here, and I was kidding him about it. He says, hey, that's my job to pass cars. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Well, here's Scott Brayton, just missed the top 10, 11th spot, and your problems really kind of started early when there was a bit of a gamble around a yellow flag and trying to stretch the fuel a little bit, and it kind of backfired.
Well, it certainly did, and all the telemetry showed us that we had 3 gallons left, but I got over in turn 2, and the car just ran out of fuel and died, and I tried to swerve it side to side, get it started, but it wouldn't start, and so I coasted in. That cost us 4 laps, and from there we were just pushing it uphill all day.
Tell us about this combination now with the Ford Lola on the super speedways. Just, I mean, pretty much awesome dominance.
It certainly is. I think originally the Lola Ford was designed for a speedway car, and so I think it's probably more compromised for a road race car. And so for that reason, the Ford engine with the Lola chassis just is very powerful out here. Ford's done an excellent job in the reliability of the engine, and it has been a very exciting power plant for me to run this year.
All right, Scott, we'll see you next week. We go back up to Paul Page.
Thank you.
So the race has been run here at Michigan. Congratulations, Scott Brayton, on his finish and keeping it going in this race. Here was Nigel Mansell as he streamed for the checkered flag, taking his win. The first 1-2 finish for Newman Haas in a 500-mile race. That was worth a big smooch from Carl Haas. Geez, looked like Paul liked it. Coming up, don't forget the International Race of Champions. We'll have more here from Michigan and plenty of racing action this afternoon on ABC Sports. As another smooch, this time from the trophy from Nigel Mansell. We'll be back. Well, the win here at Roger Penske's track in the Michigan 500 went to Newman Haas and Nigel Mansell, and that put him back at the top of the points fight with 123 points. Fittipaldi in second. Boisel remains in third. Mario Andretti in fourth. The points are beginning to tighten there at the top of the order, Sam.
Well, there are 2 oval races left and 4 road courses. Emerson is 18 points back, but the road courses are his strength. And it looks to me as if it's going to be a battle right to the end between the 2 world champions, Fittipaldi and Mansell.
My congratulations to the Haas team, but better be known, they've agitated Penske. He's going to be racing harder the rest of the year, so we're going to see good racing.
The Indy cars load up now and head off to Loudoun, New Hampshire for the New England 200 in just 1 week. That race was won last year by Bobby Rahal. Will Nigel Mansell be able to do it again? So the race has been run here at Michigan. A long, long, difficult day for the Indy cars. But Nigel Mansell has now won on every kind of circuit the Indy cars have to offer. I'm Paul Page for Sam Posey, Bobby Unser, Gary Gerald, and Jack Arute. So long from Michigan.
The Michigan 500 has been brought to you by cold-filtered Miller Genuine Draft. Get out of the old, get into the cold. By Craftsman, a line of 1,600 hand tools made in America. And by Subway, the place where fresh is the taste. Coming up next on ABC Sports, the racing action continues in Michigan with the sport's ultimate test of skill. The world's greatest drivers are set to challenge the track and each other in the grand finale of the International Race of Champions next on ABC Sports. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports.